Welcome to RSBN's Live Desk. I'm Robert McNeely as we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. So welcome to this big, beautiful Thursday morning in America. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast as you see the sun shining on Capitol Hill, as well as 8 in the morning in the Golden Coast out west. I'm Robert McNeely. Always good to be with you here on the right side of history. We know that President Trump signed into law the Halt Fentanyl Act just yesterday, and that was surrounded by families who have lost loved ones to this terrible chemical, this terrible poisoning that more and more people are becoming aware of. And sadly, it's lost in a media market, a legacy media that does not want to talk about the very issue. President Donald Trump officially signed the Halt Fentanyl Act into law just yesterday, and again, surrounded by families who have suffered so much from this tragedy. This permanently classifies fentanyl-related substances as a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substance Act. So this will be prosecuted as a felony most likely, and you could serve up to 10 years or more in prison if you traffic this poison and these chemicals against our most vulnerable in America. Now, as President Trump said, the legislation is delivering another defeat to the savage cartels, drug smugglers, and criminals, and it is just one of the many historic actions taken by this administration in less than 6 months to end the carnage wrought by foreign drug cartels and foreign terrorist organizations as designated by President Trump when he took office on January 20th this year. Now, President Trump was joined by a few of the millions of Americans whose lives have been permanently changed by the fentanyl epidemic. Greg Swan, who lost his son to fentanyl, said, "I would just like to say thank you, Mr. President, for stopping the border crossings. Full stop, mic drop. It was amazing what you did to save lives in this process. We were being gaslit, and you came and lit a fire to that story, and we're a lot safer for it." And Fundner, who lost her son to fentanyl, who we have as a special guest tonight on The Voice of Reason. In the last 4 years, fentanyl became the #1 killer of Americans ages 15 to 48. And President Trump, for 4 years, we felt ignored, but you've changed that. It is a lifeline for families across America in keeping our families safe. Thank you for keeping America safer and for protecting Americans' children. This is what we voted for. And Jackie Siegel, who lost her daughter and sister to drug overdoses. Mr. President, it's an honor to be here today on behalf of our family for this important signing. We have a recap video for you from yesterday, the Halt Fentanyl Act.
Today we strike a righteous blow to the drug dealers, narcotic traffickers, and criminal cartels that we've all been hearing so much about for so many years, and very little has been done. And we take a historic step toward justice for every family touched by the fentanyl scourge as we sign the Halt Fentanyl Act into law. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Thank you very much.
And we're diving into this very issue tonight on The Voice of Reason, not only from a public policy perspective, as we'll have special guests, Senator Tommy Tuberville, the candidate for governor of Alabama, but also, as I mentioned, Ann Fundner, an angel mom who, the story is just heartbreaking. Weston, her handsome young son, taken by this poison. And this shift in mentality. And even for me, I think about my own career and my understanding of trafficking, whether it comes in the form of human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, all terrible woes and evil, truly modern day slavery in America. And sadly, in many cases, especially with the human trafficking, America is the largest consumer of that worldwide. So let that sink in for a moment. It's not like it's portrayed in the movies, or it's not like a situation where people are necessarily addicted to these different items like marijuana or cocaine or whatever the substance might be, but rather asking a friend, hey, I have a headache. Do you have an extra Excedrin? Do you have something I could take so I can get through the day? Do you have any Ritalin if you're a student? A lot of them take that for focus, and they end up having a counterfeit pill, not by the intention of their friend, of course, but by a criminal kingpin coming either from China, from Mexico, from around the world, that was open through a porous border. And that's why AutoPen and Alejandro Mayorkas, as well as everyone in the Biden administration, you have blood on your hands. And the fact that someone like Jen Psaki can go on television and spew lies and hatred on a regular basis is really incredible, because that administration peddled and trafficked human beings. We know it for a fact. Secretary Robert Kennedy, in fact, stated that the Health and Human Services might have been responsible for the trafficking of human beings during the AutoPen administration. President Trump mentioned just last week on Friday, before going down to Florida, that 10,000 of the 300,000 children that went missing during the AutoPen administration have been accounted for and recovered. Thanks be to God. And God willing, can go back into society. Let me tell you, something really grinds my gears when you have children crossing the border. You have stories that Tom Homan shares that children, 5, 3, 1 years old, crossing the border, not able to speak English, telling border agents in their native tongue that they were brought over by a cartel, that their family handed them over. Think about that for a second. And then in turn, all of these angel families who have suffered so much because of criminal poisoning of their children, or even the adult members of their family. This president was there for these families yesterday with this HALT Fentanyl Act signing to make these substances a Class 1 felony. And so does Attorney General Pam Bondi and Kash Patel at FBI, as well as his deputy Dan Bongino, working overtime to stop this crisis. So there might be a lot of really nonsense in the legacy media. There might be a lot of ideas of binders and self-indulged influencers talking about a number of different items. But let's get down to brass tacks. This president is working overtime to stop the war on this country that is coming from the outside. And these families, like Jocelyn Nungary's mother, like Laken Riley's family, they have to live with that because the consequences of an open, porous border, thanks to the AutoPen and his comrades. And that's an appropriate term because they are a group of communists. It's becoming more and more evident every single day as we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So stick with us here on the right side of history as we dive into these very important topics. Now, breaking news as well, the Senate has passed the $9 billion in rescissions. So this is affecting public broadcasting and other entities that passed in a final vote before the Friday deadline by 51 to 48. Now, you still have Senators Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine. God willing, they will have primary opponents still on the side of the Democrats, claiming that somehow the administration is not transparent on how these funds will then be reinvested into Congress. And a bit of a history with rescission. This kind of packaging of this process in Congress actually passed into law in 1974. Now, Article 1 is very clear on this, that the power of the purse is within the United States Congress, within their purview in Article 1. Now, this only enhanced those powers to bring back money for specific funding and where they can then take care of all of that through bills and through ultimately signing of laws by the President of the United States. A fun fact dating back to Gerald Ford when this ultimately passed and he signed it into law. $25 billion was taken back by Congress through rescission packages dating back to his presidency that stopped at George W. Bush. So George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and the AutoPen, including the first term of President Trump, all $0 in rescission packages. But what does that mean for you? More spending. as a result. So these rescission packages are very good, and this has been a precedent in the past to bring those dollars back into the United States government and then either reinvested or saved for later. So this is not something to say that it's unconstitutional or unprecedented. If you hear that from the legacy media, they're not telling the truth. It's that simple, because $25 billion from Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, that all totaled that over the course of that time from 1974 until 2001 when George W. Bush took office. So a quick history lesson there on rescission packages that we are seeing used as a tool in order to scale down the size and scope of the federal government. And President Ronald Reagan talked about it. How rare is it for the government to do that? He said the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. Well, that's changing now under the leadership of President Trump and the MAGA populist movement, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and Majority Leader John Thune in the United States Senate. But today, a jam-packed day for you of coverage, analysis, and, of course, the GOAT of press secretaries, Karoline Leavitt, to hold that press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned for that as we thank our sponsors on the right side of history. All Family Pharmacy. We have 10% off now. Code RSBN10 for NAD+, methylene blue, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and much, much more, including mebendazole and 200 essential medications that can literally save your life, whether it's from a bacterial infection, a viral infection, or even just taking those emergency medical kits on the road with you. How important is that when you're on a summer vacation? Great to have all of that. And they're lightweight, they're easy to carry. Quite nice to have when you're on your summer road trip or hitting by plane, train, or automobile to enjoy seeing family and friends across this beautiful nation of ours. And why not do it? Because gas prices are down the most since July of 2021. And Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy laying out good programs in order to make that happen for all of you. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. These PBMs, they're out of control. These pharmacy owners and managers that are insurance brokers as well. So they're double dipping. They want to make as much money as they can off of you. We know President Trump signing the executive order and this online pharmacy working overtime for you. Doctors, pharmacists, nurses who are patriots. And you can scan that QR code now for this newest deal, RSBN 10, 10% off. It's RSBN 10. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for life-saving medication. In today's world, it's good to be prepared for whatever might be around the corner. We can also thank calci.com/RSBN. Who will President Trump pardon? Could that be the great Steve Bannon? Will Elon Musk create a third party known as the American Party that's been talked about? Well, you can ask all those questions, answer those, and trade and bet on the biggest questions facing this great nation of ours, domestically and internationally, including, will the Los Angeles Dodgers, will they repeat the World Series, just like the Florida Panthers did in hockey with the Stanley Cup? Calci. Trade on all things possible. Trade on anything, quite frankly. Scan the QR code there, calci.com/RSBN. And President Trump working hard to make America healthy again. In fact, Coca-Cola, now the latest company to voluntarily offer real cane sugar in their Coca-Cola. President Trump stating, I have been speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so. I'd like to thank all of those in authority at Coca-Cola. This will be a very good move by them. You'll see it's just better, and it is. And also, if you happen to be traveling to the beautiful Atlanta, Georgia, be sure to stop by the Coca-Cola Museum. All the varieties and different ingredients that have been used. Now, a certain ingredient you may not be able to try if you know the original Coca-Cola and what was in it way back when it first came out, but you could try things like a Mexican Coke that you see in the glass bottle, or what they serve in Guatemala, as well as many different varieties throughout the world and the history of this fine American institution. But real cane sugar coming back to Coca-Cola thanks to the work of Secretary Robert Kennedy, President Trump, and the great executives at this fine American company. So an exciting time to be in the golden era. And that's an entire list of different companies that are then turning to the MAHA movement, in turn making America great again. It is traditional conservative Republicans, traditional liberal Democrats coming together for the MAGA MAHA movement. And it was in Arizona at that Turning Point USA event where President Trump was endorsed by a former rival, the Democrat turned independent presidential candidate, Secretary Robert Kennedy himself, to come together and make America great again and make America healthy again. Two forces that are taking on the deep state, far left, uniparty League of Shadows. And this is just in time, considering what's happened in our world with seed oils, with Europe would not accept American poultry and ground beef, as well as other red meat products, because of hormones and different things added to the stockpile of our infrastructure and what our farmers and ranchers had to go through in order to just simply try to make money at the end of the day. Well, that's all changing now through listening and roundtables and giving options to those who are fueling and funding our food supply. It has to be healthy. It's a national security crisis. And as you watch today with the live desk and even tonight on the Voice of Reason, I think that's the consensus you'll come to, is that this country will not be destroyed from outside forces. It simply cannot be. Think about our 250-year history and all we've been through, all we've endured, from a bloody civil war to the American Revolution, where it seemed impossible that 13 colonies could come together and create a self-governing, independent nation of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, with the gentleman outside of Constitution Hall asking the late great statesman and inventor, Benjamin Franklin, the thought leader of his time, Mr. Franklin, what kind of government did you give us? Well, a constitutional republic, sir, if you can keep it. And we've been able to do that through 2 world wars, saving continents, and really since post those great wars, which they really weren't great, they were terrible, but great in the sense of their size and scale of the hell that was World War I and World War II. We voluntarily defend people and then give them back their land. What civilization has ever done that? So if you're a student right now and you hear something from a far-left lunatic professor on your campus, be sure to challenge them peacefully and patriotically on the greatness of this country, that you can rise up from next to nothing. Take the example of 3 great leaders that we're experiencing in real time. Vice President J.D. Vance, growing up in Appalachia, and sadly his mom went through addiction issues and recovered by the grace of God. And just 1 year ago this week, during his speech, his acceptance speech in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the Republican National Convention, the camera panned over to his mom and she said, "I love you, JD." And I mean, just an amazing moment to see that. That's what's supposed to happen in America, to rise up like that, to take those experiences and then go and serve in Iraq as a Marine. Use that GI Bill to go to The Ohio State University and find the love of your life in law school. That's the story of J.D. Vance and the inspiration he brings to public policy, and a calm, cool demeanor and dialogue that is very welcome at this time. Look at Senator Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State, who is doing, bar none, an incredible job of the America First agenda, peace through strength, traveling perhaps even more miles than President Trump in order to dialogue with people and put himself in their shoes. You know, his father was working 2 or 3 jobs at a time. He was a bartender. And he'd come in late at night, and Marco, sometimes struggling to go to sleep, would hear his father come through the door. And his dad would always, he wanted to welcome him naturally, as any kid would. And according to the Secretary of State's memory of those stories, his father just saying, go back to sleep. You got to get ready for school in the morning, because an education, a solid education, is the great equalizer in this nation. Look at the selfless servant that you find in Pope Leo XIV from Dolton, Illinois, the south side of Chicago. I never thought in my lifetime you'd see an American pope. This is a golden era that we are now living in, and you, the viewer, you're born for such a time as this, in your own vocation and in what you do on a daily basis to make this country great again. And the way you do that is by remaining engaged. It's by running for school boards. It's by running for city council. If you don't want to run yourself, get involved in the process. Become a precinct committeeman. There's been no other modern political movement as great as Make America Great Again. And it's larger than just one man who came down the golden escalator with his lovely wife and our wonderful First Lady, Melania Trump, in order to say, I can do it better. I understand money. I understand how to build a great business, how to take care of my employees, how to be good and how to be entertaining in the process. He took that on. His family took it on through fake impeachments, through assassination attempts, through countless lies. And it's inspired a nation of nearly 80 million people in support of this, if not more, as now the fastest growing generation is Alpha, under the age of 14 right now. And we owe it to them to fight for their futures, especially when it comes to stopping the fentanyl trafficking and the evils that foreign terrorist organizations would push upon this great United States. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, angelpaste.com. They're out of Spring, Texas, right off of the Gulf of America. So think about this. They are Christian-owned, they hire veterans, and they bring you good products that won't poison you. Because some other lotions and beauty products, you look at the back of the ingredient and like, what the hell is that? Why would I put that on my skin? I don't want that to be absorbed into my system. Not to worry with the great Angel Paste, because they have a vitamin B option, the original Miracle Cream. You've seen me try it here on the show. That is non-GMO. It's no chemicals. It's good for you. And it leaves your skin glowing. And I got to admit, I get those dry hands on occasion, so I do need that. I grew up with that eczema. It was hereditary, and it's been throughout my family. So you have that every once in a while, especially with the dry skin. This is my go-to, as well as an orange option. It's an immunity booster filled with vitamin C's, non-GMO, no chemicals for your health. Also, this time of year, Spring, Texas knows a thing or two about mosquitoes in that tropical environment off the Gulf of America. So a natural mosquito repellent, also a natural facial spray to paint the town red. With guys and gals, you can use this. And guys, I get it. You might worry about grabbing the tackle box after you use this. Don't you worry. You just need a couple of minutes, get all that into your skin, and you're ready to go fishing. Trust me on this, because I'm an outdoorsman myself. Experience the miracle today. Angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. And the great master marketer of them all, as President Trump put it in Warren Township, Michigan for the 100-day celebration, Mr. Mike Lindell with another free shipping sale. So get that My Cross for 50% off, half off of the male and female version of the cross that Mr. Mike Lindell wears on a daily basis, thanking the Lord for all he has bestowed upon this country and upon an American-made company out of Minnesota. My Pillow bed sheets going for as low as $24.98, and the multi-use My Pillow 2.0 now $9.98. That's better than any lunch deal out there. In fact, Mr. Director, Mr. Producer, and I enjoy a nice $10 deal right in Auburn, Alabama. That's more expensive than that My Pillow that you can get a lot more use out of. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN by shopping now at mypillow.com/RSBN. Save with code RSBN. How much simpler does it get? Call today. Don't delay. 800-836-7566. We're on the right side of history. So is Mike Lindell. He's the purveyor of free speech. He is the defender of election integrity. And he might be governor of Minnesota one day. At least we hope so here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, because this high-quality product will help you get a good night's sleep and get that day ready and rolling for you right out the door early in the morning with over 2,000 different products at mypillow.com/RSBN. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history as President Trump is truly making America healthy again. And it's through the HALT Fentanyl Act was signed into law yesterday. It is the strengthening of rural hospitals if it came through the One Big Beautiful Bill. That act signed into law on the 4th of July by President Trump. Also, the fact that ice cream will now actually be ice cream. That's an amazing thought, isn't it? That, you use milk or it's a custard form or sugar, whatever it might be, to bring that all together. Secretary Brooke Rollins detailing that recently at that press conference with the USDA and other congressmen, senators, governors, and cabinet officials focused on making America healthy again. And we can recap for you right now.
I just want to commend the leadership, Michael and the whole team and everyone you represent at IDFA and all the dairy farmers and ice cream producers they represent for taking on this voluntary, proactive effort to eliminate the use of artificial colors in ice cream products by the end of 2027. Because of this historic partnership between USDA and HHS, and I will say it is an unprecedented partnership, but also because of leadership of organizations like IDFA and again, all the farmers and producers they represent, we are driving meaningful change to make America healthy again. I also want to acknowledge a lot of other partners, the Consumer Brands Association, Tyson Foods, PepsiCo, J.M. Smucker, Nestle, Hershey, Conagra Brands, Kraft Heinz, and General Mills, each of which have recently made similar commitments to remove artificial colors from their products. Just last week, the Consumer Brands Association announced a voluntary commitment to encourage the makers of America's food and beverage products to remove certified food, drug, and cosmetic colors from products served in our schools by the start of next year's school year, 2026. The beauty of America is the role that private enterprise has always played, but will continue to play, and perhaps an even bigger role, in voluntarily shaping policies for the good of future generations.
And President Trump and his cabinet working overtime to make America healthy again, with USDA Chief Brooke Rollins, who really is to be credited for the work she did in between the first 45 administration to now 47. We know an auto pen was in between those 4 years, and somehow we survived that because we're America. God is not done with us yet. We learned that in Butler, Pennsylvania, when he spared President Trump's life. And just think about that for a moment. Just reflect upon that this week. 1 year ago, the Republican National Convention, the populist movement, a big tent movement of MAGA and MAHA came together in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, reflecting that the leader of the movement could have been murdered on live television. And that would have been horrible for us to watch, regardless, too, if you support or don't support a political candidate. There should be zero tolerance for political violence in the United States of America. And we know that certain entities, including the deep state, they've tried it in the past. We saw what happened with President Kennedy. We saw what happened with President Nixon. When you buck the authority that is the deep state, the League of Shadows, the globalists, they attempt to strike back. But they are weaker than they have ever been since President Eisenhower warned us of the military-industrial complex when he left office. And it is our solemn duty to swear our lives, our sacred honor, our trust to one another as American citizens. And that's what we want to do here for you at Right Side Broadcasting Network with all of our programming, with our great writers as well as our daily content that brings you a live desk of what's happening real time in your government. Because it's about the consent of the governed. And as Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, said from Gettysburg, those hallowed grounds, the technology at the time, we were so fortunate to get a picture of him even there because it took the cameramen so long to set up that his short speech was just about over, saying that this government established for, by, and of the people from God shall not perish from the earth. And that the people there that fought that battle did not die in vain. They were willing to charge up those hills in order to preserve these foundational documents. And may we never reach that point again, where brothers and sisters and cousins, family members turning on one another in order to provide for a more perfect union. This country has literally gone into battle to save the dignity of another person, regardless of race, religion, creed, and background. It's the beauty of this nation. And you have a government in place right now that deeply believes in that. And the constitutional process, and many individuals, including the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief, willing to die for it in order to make America great again. So think about that this week as we reflect upon Butler and 1 year ago when the Republicans came together in Milwaukee to take 20 promises made and keep them, making them official Republican policy. And we've seen it in a few short 6 months roughly of governance, the fastest moving modern administration in American history. Now, we can look back to just a couple of days ago as well, President Trump visiting the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Vice President J.D. Vance following him yesterday. It's all about $92 billion of investments in the Keystone State. So we're talking energy, we're talking artificial intelligence, we're talking about the safety and security of the United States of America. President Trump signing that executive order weeks ago that will bring about safety and security within the nation. And you have to ask yourself this question dating back to the auto pen. Why did Joseph R. Biden Jr. or his cronies, because we know he was in cognitive decline from day one, authorize the Russian pipeline that exchanged energy with Germany? And then you have the Germans who are, at the time, they were running the European Union, complaining that Russia had too much of an influence over their affairs. But they needed that Russian energy. That was okay to do that pipeline. But the Keystone XL pipeline was shut down, that went from Alaska through the 51st state of Canada into the lower 48. And even the communist, Justin Trudeau, was on his knees begging the auto pen, please, Mr. President, don't do this because we need jobs here in Canada. Interesting, isn't it? He wanted to preserve Canadian jobs, although he wasn't much of a free market capitalist. That's how important those pipelines were. And that affected the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now think about this. If the former vice president was successful in that process, Pennsylvania would have been done. There would have been no more fracking. There would have been no more oil drilling, the drill baby drill. They are so geopolitically positioned for prosperity. It's one of the greatest places you can live in the entire country when it comes to high-paying, good middle-class jobs because of the work this administration is doing overtime in order to make America beautiful again. And it's not with the bird-killing, plastic, wind power that the Chinese Communist Party is supplying through other companies and shipping overseas. It's the ugliest thing you could look at. When I sometimes drive from the Chicago area down south and vice versa, I hit this patch across the crossroads of America, otherwise known as Indiana, a beautiful state. And you see just these acres and acres of these bird killers. Why would we do something like that? Now, I don't blame the farmers because they need to make a living. I understand that you'd have to have something on your land, and with all the regulations and the hormones and what we've seen in the attempt to make America healthy again, how expensive it can be to simply farm properly. Well, why not sell it to the highest bidder in a number of different ways? We'll talk more about that tonight on The Voice of Reason with Senator Tommy Tuberville, that exact topic on the selling of American farmland to those who might not have our best interest. But regardless, those bird killers, they're grave sites. They're disgusting and they can't be recycled. So everyone in the green energy movement, or more of the green eco-terrorists that are out there, why would you want these big plastic machines that can never be recycled? That's not good for the earth. President Trump addressing all of that just 2 days ago with Senator McCormick, business leaders, and union leaders in the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you like what you see here on RSBN's live desk, if you like The Voice of Reason, if you like our newsletters, please feel free to donate here at the network because it helps us get the job done here as citizen journalists, anchors, hosts, commentators, and people who are, quite frankly, political nerds, such as yours truly. rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. The best and easiest way to get that done. But you can also do something very fun. Send an old school check or money order in the mail, or just pure cash itself. You can mail us that at 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's Box 344, Auburn, Alabama. It's the loveliest village on the plains. 36830-1550. Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama. 36830. rsbnetwork.com/donate. or text RSBN to 801-801. Thank you for your support on the right side of history. And allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. We know that President Trump signing that executive order recently in order to scale down the cost of prescription drugs in the United States of America, but it's no longer a convenience to have these life-saving medications, whether it's a storm. We saw what happened in Texas. We've seen what happened in Western North Carolina just months ago where people lose access to a pharmacy, or something just down the road, or the PBMs that want to shut down NAD+, methylene blue, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and much, much more, including mebendazole and 200 essential medications, emergency medical kits they could take on the road with you as well. So there's no excuse to be unprepared in 2025, especially when it comes to your health and making America healthy again. With the new code 10% off now, all orders, RSBN10, RSBN10 for all of these great medications I mentioned, including antibiotics. And you could scan that QR code there right now. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, Patriot doctors and healthcare providers, nurses and pharmacists that are there for you. Michael Kunzler, the co-owner, along with family members and friends, doing an amazing job to make America healthy again. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history, as we are awaiting Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing this afternoon at the White House, the James S. Brady Briefing Room, which happens to be the location of the old White House swimming pool. If you ever take a chance to visit, it's just off of the entrance to the West Wing that you see on a daily basis as we cover President Trump's many meetings and visits by heads of state, including yesterday the Prime Minister and Crown Prince of Bahrain, a very small island nation that's within the Persian Gulf and not very far from where President Trump visited recently in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, and the moderate Arab world coming together to condemn Iran, its actions, and to celebrate the fact that they are no longer capable of nuclear missiles and weapons. And who delivered that? President Trump, General Raisin Kane, and Secretary of Defense, the Pentagon Chief, Pete Hegseth. Nice to have subject matter experts running this government once again, instead of Washington bureaucrats and that so-called Scranton Joe, who did not do a damn thing for Delaware nor the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for 50 plus years in office. someone who was a stooge and a puppet. And I don't like saying that about a former president, but we know he may not have gotten there simply on the merit of a vote, as it should happen. Because you're telling me that that guy during a COVID pandemic, somehow campaigning from a basement, received 81 million votes. I'll let you be the judge of that, but I know you, the American people, the viewers here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, much smarter than most, and inspired to get involved in a movement that reclaimed its nation peacefully and patriotically. And that's what I tell my friends too. Go to a MAGA rally, and we're still having some of those, as Christina Loren joined us in Des Moines, Iowa, on a hot, sweltering celebration of the 4th of July, the beautiful Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines. Visit during the summertime, because what a cool capital, what a beautiful city, a very ornate Capitol building, in fact, and some great restaurants. So I like to plug those somewhat smaller cities that you can travel to. Why not hop in the car? As Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy mentioned earlier, at the beginning of summer, the unofficial start around Memorial Day, hop in that car, take advantage of lower gas prices, and enjoy time with family and friends across this amazing civilization of ours. And that's what we're in right now. This battle, as I think T.S. Dixon, Mr. Matthew Alvarez, having him on regularly here on the network on the live desk, really hitting it out of the park. If you caught any of the coverage yesterday on what's taking place with the turnings in America, to sum up his great ratings, his book, The Woke Mind Virus, really gives you a glimpse of what the far left communist movement believes and what the globalist deep state League of Shadow uniparty wants to accomplish. It's complete and total control of you and roughly 60 plus Western nations who believe in sovereign borders, who believe in culture, who believe in enjoying one another's company, and who believe in the freedom that you can pursue happiness. Our Constitution does not guarantee happiness, but it guarantees the pursuit of it. And we lost that pursuit over the course of the last 4 years from the Otto Penn and his crony communist that joined him, as well as, let's be honest, Barack Hussein Obama, who was almost a puppet master over these people. Well, constitutional governance came back on January 20th as you elected President Donald Trump for a second term on November 5th of last year. And for me personally, it's been an exciting time to cover all of it for you. The truth and everything that you see on a daily basis here on Right Side Broadcasting Network's live desk. And we'll bring it to you real time as we await Karoline Leavitt holding a press conference at the 1 o'clock hour. Stick with us. We will have an exciting interview forthcoming and more to talk about here on the Right Side of History. See you in a couple of minutes.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
In case you missed it yesterday, President Trump signing in the HALT Fentanyl Act, a huge success in stopping this criminal enterprise that has harmed the United States of America and the loved ones of family members, this total scourge against our young people and some older as well. President Trump signing this HALT Fentanyl Act into law, permanently classifying fentanyl-related substances as a Class 1 drug, a Schedule 1 drug under the Controlled Substance Act. Now, President Trump stating that the legislation delivering another defeat for the savage drug smugglers, criminals, and the cartels that are now foreign terrorist organizations, and it's just one of the historic moves the Trump administration has taken to end the carnage against American citizens. And this is also thank you to Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino, who we hear give the benefit of the doubt with everything being discussed in the media cycle right now. But the legacy item, they seem to forget this moment about fentanyl and how it's harmed Americans and how this bipartisan legislation, now law, will put these animals into jail for 10 plus years for even trafficking this poison against American citizens and the millions of lives this can potentially save. Now, Greg Swan, who lost his son to fentanyl, said, "I would like to just say thank you, Mr. President, for stopping the border crossings. Full stop, mic drop. It was amazing what you did. We were being gaslit, and you came and lit a fire to the story, and we're a lot safer for it." Ann Fundner, who lost her son Weston to fentanyl. You'll see her tonight on The Voice of Reason for a very moving and heartbreaking discussion, but you'll be inspired. There's a lot of courage behind her testimony, along with all of these angel mom and dads who have to live with this on a daily basis. Ann said that in the last 4 years, fentanyl became the #1 killer to Americans ages 15 to 48. President Trump, for 4 years, we felt ignored, but we've changed very fast. It is a lifetime for families across America who have suffered from this pain. And thank you for keeping American families safe. 14 years and younger, that's the fastest growing demographic in America, Generation Alpha. We deserve, as Americans, to defend them on a daily basis. And thanks to President Trump, we can help do that. Jackie Siegel, who lost her daughter and sister to a drug overdose, stated that, "Mr. President, it's an honor to be here today on behalf of our family for this important signing." So we have a recap video for you, the HALT Fentanyl Act that was signed yesterday in the East Room of the White House.
It's an honor to be with you. Today we strike a righteous blow to the drug dealers, narcotic traffickers, and criminal cartels that we've all been hearing so much about for so many years. And we take a historic step toward justice for every family touched by the fentanyl scourge as we sign the HALT Fentanyl Act into law. With this bill, we are officially and permanently classifying all fentanyl-related substances as Schedule 1 narcotics, meaning anyone caught trafficking these illicit poisons will be punished with a mandatory 10-year minimum sentence in prison. We're joined today by just a few of the millions of families ravaged by this scourge.
This is what we voted for, Mr. President. God bless you. God bless our angel families who are all here with us today.
So today, on behalf of all Americans who have lost a loved one to opioids, we renew our vow to liberate America from this horrible plague. And we'll be getting the drug dealers, pushers, and peddlers off our street. And we will not rest until we have ended the drug overdose epidemic.
There are no words to say to the people who have suffered so much from this, but we continue on. We remember their legacy, their memories. In turn, it will save lives to become educated and to advocate for those who were literally poisoned, whether they be like Weston in the prime of his life, or those who are older too, thinking that they were simply just taking a medication or even a prescription drug or simply something else that was laced with this deadly fentanyl chemical. And it's reflected in President Trump's tariffs. It's reflected in securing the border. It's reflected in truly being a humanitarian. So if any left-wing lunacy you come into contact with says that somehow this administration doesn't care about the middle class and American citizens, or for some reason it's not humanitarian to close the border, point them to these angel families whose life will never be the same. They've lost their loved ones. And they are on a mission to making America safe again and making America healthy again. And we've seen that in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act as well. President Trump signing that into law on the 4th of July with a star-studded event, star-spangled in fact, with the B-2 bombers that went into Iran, coming over the White House to celebrate the technology that we only have to remain undetected against all threats, foreign and domestic. This administration is working overtime to secure this great country and to fight for rural hospitals. That was one of the big items on the far left that was spewed out there. And again, spaghetti trying to hit the wall. Nothing seems to stick with demon rats that truly do hate America. President Trump truthing out that Americans know we are a better healthcare system to properly serve our great communities that were abandoned by the radical left Democrats. That's why Republicans included $50 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill to strengthen our most vulnerable hospitals, including those in rural areas. But every Democrat voted against the funding. I'll repeat, every single Democrat voted against that funding. President Trump went on to say, I want to thank all of the Republicans in Congress who worked incredibly hard to make the achievement possible. Our nation thanks you too. And it's amazing that Democrats couldn't find one thing in the bill that they could agree with. I'm sure some of them, if you just brought them to the side and went away from their leader, otherwise known as No Hips Hakeem, if you caught his recent doctored photos just hanging out in Harlem and the Bronx, was a guy who is completely self-serving. He's learned from the best. Nancy Pelosi, who, mind you, has become rich off of stock trading and practices that ended up landing Martha Stewart in jail. But for some reason, if you're a member of Congress, you're able to get away with that. Wonder why that is. Perhaps that's the next step in making America great again, stopping these entrenched politicians from writing the laws and then practicing insider trading. And it happens on both sides of the aisle. We know that our dear friend, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, he pointed it out perhaps better than anyone else as he represented Florida's 1st congressional district. How insane is that to have a superstar, quite frankly, someone like Martha Stewart, who has brought hope and smiles into countless homes in America over the course of her career, in jail for doing the exact same thing and under house arrest Nancy Pelosi is doing. Well, we know her husband enjoys house arrest with strangers, but I digress. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Will Elon Musk create a third party? I sure hope not. What say you about it, though? Because you can actually go and vote on this in the American Party. Will it happen? Will it not happen? Or will Elon simply pour money into primaries, really as it should be? And granted, there's plenty of Republican congressmen who need to be shown the door, just like about all of those demon rats who voted against the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Will President Trump pardon anyone this year? How about the great Steve Bannon working overtime to help make America great again? You can scan that QR code there. Trade on anything, including sports. Will the Los Angeles Dodgers repeat their World Series championship? They sure look good in the All-Star game with Clayton Kershaw on the mound for about 6 pitches. A hell of a team out there, out on the West Coast. But will they repeat just like the Florida Panthers did in hockey with the Stanley Cup? So you can answer all of those questions. Trade and bet on the most important items in America and abroad. Kalshi.com/RSBN. And make sure as you go through the summer months that you don't have any dry skin or irritation, or that you're simply ready to paint the town red. The best way to do that, angelpaste.com. They are based in Spring, Texas, the Houston Metroplex, right along that Gulf of America in the Lone Star State. The vitamin B infused miracle cream, the original, non-GMO, no chemicals. I've used it here on the network. It made my skin glowing, got rid of that dry skin too, so I highly endorse it. They have plenty of other options though, including an immunity boosting vitamin C infused orange option. How about an all-natural mosquito spray and a facial spray for guys and gals so you can get ready for that first or second date and impress your significant other. Experience the miracle today. Angelpaste.com. They're Christian owned. They hire veterans. They're in Texas. Nothing better than angelpaste.com. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history as we break down all of the recent news. So much happening inside of the Beltway, outside of the Beltway, and we hope that you're enjoying the summer months and taking a little bit of R&R one way or the other in this great nation of ours. And one of the best vacations. It's a bit sweltering and humid this time of year in the swamp, but Washington, D.C., always a great destination to enjoy the museums, the history, and to really reflect upon nearly 250 years in this golden era of a constitutional republic from sea to shining sea. 50 states, 6 territories, and maybe we'll add to that. What do you think about that? Will Canada become the 51st state? Feel free to write in if you wish to opine. Feedback@rsbn.tv. That's feedback@rsbn.tv. Now, the Senate has passed in the early morning hours some breaking news here. $9 billion in a rescission package that targets public broadcasting, and really rightfully so, because so much of this public money going to what was state-run media. I mean, there's no other way to sugarcoat it, and you'd find things like PBS and other networks who were pushing the transgender story hours, or even taking classic Jim Henson Muppets and different puppets that he produced over the years with his great company and turning the greatest shows that have been in the history of American television into left-wing propaganda machines, and some of the nonsense that you even saw on Sesame Street, something I grew up with to learn my basics. But why do children have to learn about transgender this, or even, let's just say it's heterosexual marital acts? They don't need to know about that until their parents are ready to teach that, until their church is ready to teach that. That's why here at RSBN, we're homeschool advocates, we're private school advocates, we're about reforming public schools, as the Supreme Court of the United States has also offered up its opinion this week. Another big win for the Trump administration. With that executive order, can now untie Secretary Linda McMahon's hands to start the process of bringing the Department of Education back to the states, as it should be. We have a 10th Amendment for a reason in the Bill of Rights, that states' rights matter, that the laboratories of democracy are allowed to practice, because guess what? They may come up with a better idea that the federal government can then replicate or practice. I mean, even Barack Hussein Obama loved the Massachusetts socialist healthcare program that Mitt Romney helped create when he was governor. And then for some reason, Republicans wanted to nominate him to run in 2012. He was no different than Barack Hussein Obama. That became abundantly clear until President Trump came down that golden escalator a decade ago with our extraordinary First Lady. And let me tell you another thing. I'm not one for necessarily fashion or those kind of magazines, but I know something that looks presentable. I know something that is nice. And why don't these magazines actually cover the First Lady of the United States as they should? because she represents this country in an extraordinary way. She speaks 6 languages. It's a lot more than I can speak. Let me tell you, she is perhaps one of the greatest who has ever served in that role. And you see it with people on a daily basis when they're at the bill signings, when they are interacting with the Trumps. And the time that they give to people, they want to know about you. They want to learn about you. And they're actually interested in what you have to say. And for such a high-profile couple, it's refreshing that, as Don Jr. puts it, why do we want to go and enjoy the rubber chicken dinners and talk with the so-called elites? We want to talk to you, the American people. And we saw that in such an extraordinary way during the campaign in 2024. And as it continues, with $92 billion of infrastructure, energy, and AI coming into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. A big headline this week that was in the Alatoona News, also the Pittsburgh Gazette, among countless other newspapers throughout the great Commonwealth, from the Steel City of Pittsburgh to the home of the world champion, Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm wearing my Make America Healthy Again tie today that happens to be Eagles green, which I have a lot of friends who are Eagles fans, but they're a tough bunch at times. But we're proud of them, and so is the Commonwealth of President Trump, and bringing unions together as well as private business and the leadership of Senator McCormick to open up those doors in that energy summit, bringing the President of the United States to have that roundtable. In case you missed it, we covered all of that, so you could scrub back this week and catch all of that. And isn't that the great thing about streaming and where all of this is going in 2025 America? Streaming is the brand new hot cross buns of this golden era. Turn off the cable. You don't need it anymore. Go back to the stuff that's actually going to dive into public policy, opinion, and in-depth analysis of the government you put into place, this constitutional republic, nearly 250 years young. As we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing, stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. She should be on scheduled 1 hour from now, roughly 58 minutes. It's 12:02 on the East Coast. A beautiful view of our nation's Capitol building as the sun shines brilliantly upon the federal city. Good afternoon to my East Coasters, and still a good morning, 9 o'clock in the morning on the Golden West Coast. I'm Robert McNeely. You're tuning into RSBN, the live desk that will bring you everything in real time and on time, perhaps for under a dime. It's all free viewing for you, but if you like what you see here at the network, we'd be honored to have your dollars. And I'm not one to ask for money, but this is the way we compete against a legacy media that's out there with an agenda. We've seen it on a daily basis. If you go and flip those channels, you know what I'm talking about. So please feel free to go to rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. And that helps us to keep on going on and making a difference for you and yours in this great American experiment. And everything should be on the table. We will go where the breadcrumbs leave. We will find the facts and bring it all to you, the American people, because that's what you deserve. And that's what we'll work on hard here at the network, to bring you real news in real time. Now, I understand that some of you like checks. You like sending cash. You like sending that letter through the mail. I like to joke around, 20 years ago? Not even. It's, I'm on AOL Messenger. I got a message. I got mail. Now, almost you get a letter in the mail. It's like, oh my gosh, I got a letter in the mail. This is incredible. Instead of 500,000 emails on a daily basis. Mail us a cash or check at 1550 Opelika Road. That is Suite 6, Box 344 in the loveliest Village of the Plains. You can see that right behind me there. A great campus, Auburn University. It's Auburn, Alabama, 36830. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. That is in Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for all your dollars. and cash checks and money orders that help make us your go-to live desk on a regular basis. And while you're at that, make sure your health is in line. Stock that medicine cabinet with allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Running a new deal here, RSBN 10. That's RSBN 10, 10% off with that code. NAD+, methylene blue, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and much, much more, including mebendazole. Now, this is great because for years, in fact, decades, these life-saving medications fighting against viral infections and bacterial infections, it helps against COVID. This is a smart thing to have in the medicine cabinet ready to go. Also smart to have on the road for your summer vacations. Easy to travel with, whether it's by plane, train, or automobile. Scan that QR code there now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Life-saving medications, in fact, over 200 of them, including emergency medical kits and antibiotics that can make the world of difference for you and yours, whether at home or on the road. We know President Trump signing that executive order to bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals. This online pharmacy with experts not stopping in that process, hitting the ground running. And we know with the PBMs and certain insurance agencies and brokers, pharmaceutical managers, they either don't want you to have this life-saving medication or they like to skyrocket it. And talk about double dipping. Insurance companies that own pharmacies, that shouldn't be. But our government and private institutions like allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN fighting overtime to bring you life-saving medication. So thank you to Michael Kunzler, the co-owner, along with his brother and family members and experts, doctors, healthcare providers, and pharmacists working overtime for you. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Did you know recently as well that Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the youngest governor in America right now, actually signing into law, which becomes effective January 1st, 2026, to scale back against these PBMs and the people who are taking advantage of you when it comes to healthcare and pharmaceutical trades. We hope that other governors join in that, and we know down here in the Southeast, that is something that is going to be looked at as most are term limited. And make sure you catch tonight as we speak to one of those individuals who might be taking the reins over for Governor Kay Ivey here in Alabama. His name is Senator Tommy Tuberville. You might know him more as Coach Tuberville of the great Auburn University Tigers during his tenure, one of the most storied football coaches in all of college football history. We dive into those issues, the rescission package that was recently passed in the early morning hours today by a 51-48 vote. As of our taping yesterday, the vice president had to come in before his trip to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to get that through a procedural hurdle, thanks to Rhino senators like Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine. Hopefully there will be some primary challenges against them. Young Republicans, I'm looking at you right now. It's time to primary the Rhinos and get them out of Washington, D.C., so citizen legislators can once serve our great country again. But we'll dive into all of those topics, as well as college football and some of his other colleagues who are up to no good. That's Shifty Adam Schiff from California. So be sure to catch tonight the voice of reason. At 6 o'clock Eastern, we'll have Senator Tommy Tuberville, the great coach of Auburn University, to jump into all of these important issues facing the United States of America. We'll go to a quick commercial break. Join us in a couple of minutes as we continue to break down the news. And Karoline Leavitt, she's about 50 or so minutes away holding a press briefing from the James S. Brady press conference room in the West Wing of the White House. We'll see you on the other side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live as we await Karoline Leavitt holding a press conference today live from the White House. We will take you there as well as dive into some interesting conversations later in the show today. You see a beautiful look there. The sun shining bright on your constitutional republic, on Article 1 and that Capitol building, which you have to love the sight of that. It's a beautiful building, and I hope you bring family and friends to Washington, D.C. to enjoy that this summer. We are joined now by Justine Brooke Murray of the Media Research Center. Always wonderful to have her analysis from within the Beltway. Justine, look at this rescission package, the amount of hurdles it's had to go through, but President Trump's agenda seems to really be working with the MAGA base on Capitol Hill and those congressmen and senators working overtime with this slim majority to get the job done for the American people.
Really incredible to see. And first, thank you so much for having me back. The Media Research Center, for years, we have been campaigning to get PBS and NPR defunded. These are our state media platforms. And for decades, American taxpayers, we've been forced to subsidize left-wing propaganda, America-hating propaganda. And to this very moment, the legacy media is still pulling out Elmo and the Muppet comrades to pull at our heartstrings and say, well, if you're defunding PBS propaganda, you're going to fire Elmo and kill Big Bird, when Elmo and Big Bird, Sesame Street, they haven't been part of PBS's jurisdiction for 10 years. They're part of Netflix. And that's something to get out today. A lot of people think when they think of children's programming at PBS, they think, oh, C is for cookie. It's not been the case for a long time. Now it's like G is for grooming, and sometimes J is for jihad. They hate America. And in general, why should Americans be forced to fund taxpayer dollars to any media outlet, to any propaganda outlet? Can you imagine if the left, what would the left would say if we started funding conservative outlets or better outlets like RSBN, but we still shouldn't be funding anybody?
And the work you do at Media Research Center is so fantastic because you're staying right on this and alerting people who might not have kids or they might not have nephews and nieces at home who are aware of a classic like Sesame Street, like you and I grew up with. We might not have had to deal with that, but now they are doing the grooming. They are anti-Semitic. And you put out these great comedic videos to showcase all of that. But what are your thoughts? Why would this great public funding take a turn? I mean, this is the same kind of show like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood used to be on PBS, and he would teach these enduring lessons on life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, but also the golden rule, how to treat your neighbor, and now it's turned into perverted, jihadi, leftist, globalist nonsense. What would behoove someone to want to put out that kind of content?
Their agenda. The goal is to indoctrinate Americans starting with young people. So they put on programs like this drag queen they had once who wrote a book and sings a song called The Hips on the Drag Queen Go Swish Swish. They actually programmed this on PBS. And if you dare to stand up against it, well, you're a horrible, evil bigot. But the goal is social engineering. We actually resurfaced NPR, similar to PBS. They're very gross with how they groom people. They broadcasted a live abortion. They actually broadcasted the moaning of this mother who was going through this gruesome act of murdering her preborn baby. So when NPR's Catherine Marr insists, oh, we serve all Americans, we're nonpartisan, it's such a pile of BS, as in PBS is full of BS and NPR is also full of BS.
It really is. And thanks be to God that you have Media Research Center, your great institution, diving in and exposing the darkness of a message and an agenda that is committed to the communist left. Now, do you think on Capitol Hill, you're right there in the action in the Beltway, we'll have further rescission packages? And why do you think Senator Murkowski and Senator Collins, they're claiming that the Trump administration isn't giving them enough information when it comes to the defunding of these state media-run institutions, as you so aptly put it? But is there something that's there? Maybe lobbyists, maybe other groups of people that are whispering in their ear? And are they really working for Alaska and Maine constituents?
We can't always tell, but time and again for years, you've seen people who claim they're on the right turn out to be rhinos, Republicans in name only. And maybe it's true that they are being lobbied, or maybe they're just self-serving. Maybe they're grifting and they hope to get a stint on ABC one day, or maybe they want to be a PBS NPR correspondent. So you can never really tell. Sometimes people just don't know the issue well enough. We've had senators and congressmen who the Media Research Center actually convinced they were on the fence. They didn't know much about what was behind defunding PBS and NPR. And we were able to bring them to the light and help them see the light. So sometimes it's really just that. You have people who, when they think of these public media corporations, they think of back in the 70s. They think of back when there was Mr. Rogers, and they don't realize what the public corporation of broadcasting has become.
And that's a very good point, as well as there's a Friday deadline to get some of these packages through. So do you think we'll see anything in the next few hours? Because, you know, as someone who hosts a show here, it's actually a bit irritating because these congressmen are actually working and they can't come on for interviews, but that's okay. We like to see them actually getting to work on behalf of the American people, especially when it comes to cutting things, because we've seen rescission packages dating back to 1974 when they instituted it by law. So from Gerald Ford through President Bill Clinton, $25 billion saved until January 20th of 2001, a new era with George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, the auto pen, even the first Trump administration, there were no rescission packages. In that time, the national debt skyrocketing. So do you think that there will be more of rescission packages coming in the course of the next few hours to save money for the American people?
We'll see. A lot of people certainly hope so. And I think that this first move is a very good sign, especially that you just said that all the lawmakers you want to have on air right now, they're busy working. So that does go to show that there could be some hope that we can see more rescission before the Friday deadline. But you'll also see a lot of leftist pushback. Our leftist lawmakers maybe when filibustering and just taking as much time as possible to try to delay what frankly might just be the inevitable. America is taking a new course. People are realizing that they don't want to spend taxpayer dollars on things that are very unnecessary. The careers of these bureaucrats who've been in D.C. for decades and just have done nothing for us, and for the past couple of years have just been working remotely in these DEI positions, and you never see them. They just take your money all the time. Like with USAID, we've realized they've been funding these drag performances and transgender performances across the globe. So I think a lot of congressmen and senators who are even on the right, who were maybe on the line about rescission, they're seeing, well, are we going to get elected again? Are we going to get future votes again if we continue kind of taking a weaker stance?
And Doge, really the everlasting mark of Elon Musk, as 130 days he was a special government employee. There's some talk right now that he might start a third party, the American Party. What are your takes on that? And won't it be now, with all of these rescission packages either passed like the $9 billion today or even those to come in the next several hours potentially, isn't that fuel to bring back to your district and say, hey, we're actually streamlining the size and scope of the federal government?
It certainly sounds like it should be. With Elon Musk creating his own party, it's just the hullabaloo around it. It's an attempt to divide people on the right, just people on the right, Americans who are so sick of having been thrown under the bus by the left, by the media, by the Biden administration for years. This is really not the time to divide, and the goal is to really divide and conquer. A lot of people who would subscribe to Elon's new American Party, well, they're really the same people who would and have the same interests with President Trump and the right. So I really don't see this need to start splitting up people we're really all on the same side here. We're all trying to stand up against the left's and our bureaucratic leftist attempts to continue forcing taxpayers to foot the bill for their useless jobs, where our bureaucrats do nothing for us, and the left's attempts to undermine this country and cater to our enemies.
And especially a good message to remain united, because we know No Hips Hakeem will do everything he can to impeach President Trump. They've been very clear about that, because the demon rat left, they don't want tax relief for hardworking Americans. They don't want a secure border. It's become abundantly clear as they stood so firmly against the One Big Beautiful Act signed into law by President Trump on the 4th of July. Now, Justine, I know you're watching closely, along with MRC as a whole, going into what's almost a new school year and the anti-Semitism that's been running rampant, especially on America's college campuses. What can we do as American citizens, whether we're in a college town like we are here in Auburn? And I could happily report everyone gets along in Auburn. The students are great. They're good people. They're very content, but that's not the case in every American college town. How can the viewers make sure that their neighbors are protected, and then we can peacefully and patriotically celebrate everyone regardless of religious background or even their heritage, which, quite frankly, we're in America, which should be celebrated on a regular basis?
Correct. The first thing I would recommend is always take your camera out and film, especially if you're on a college campus and you're seeing these these mostly peaceful protests, which we know they're not. If you see these jihadis burning down campuses, harassing Jewish students, especially if you're seeing faculty members or biased professors egging this on, if you're seeing a faculty member out chanting for jihad with the students, take your camera out and film. I actually just got out of a very important meeting a few weeks ago at the White House, a meeting with Jewish Americans and Americans who want to put an end to this terrorizing of campuses and our streets. And we had Leo Terrell there. We had very important White House staffers there who basically told us to be the eyes and ears. And it wasn't just for the activists in that room. It was for everybody in this country. We are the eyes and ears. We are the new media. So film something. Film what they do on the campuses and submit a complaint to the White House. And it seems like this administration is very keen on getting things done. But go after the faculty members and the administration, the administrators on campuses who are teeing this up, because you see a lot of students cheering for terrorism, but it's really because they've been indoctrinated, and you have these administrators who've long ago been installed on these campuses who they're only there because they want to push Marxism and push jihad.
And I remember back in the first term of President Trump, you were there for the signing of that executive order that really brought free speech back to America's college campuses. And diving back into my career, I was actually organizing a campus clash event on behalf of the great Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA, and we were at the University of Iowa, a great campus, but that land-based research center, I can't tell you the way the red carpet rolled out after you were there for that signing in the East Room back in 2019. And we know, as I mentioned earlier, you do some incredible videos and you're very funny. You bring so much light to the darkness on what's going on, not only on the campuses, but also in American life. Where can everyone catch all of your action and the work of Media Research Center to bring real journalism and the truth to the American people?
Certainly. Head over to mrctv.org. We are also at the MRC, which is our main page on X, and also MRC TV on X. We're also Newsbusters on X. If you also just go onto our Newsbusters website, we have many websites, but it's all part under the umbrella of the Media Research Center. On YouTube, I have a show every couple of days, and it's called The World of Woke, and you can just search up MRC TV. You'll get all of our updates there.
And it always brings a smile to my face, and I share it on my social media pages because you make people very aware of what the legacy media will not even touch, but you do it with such a great comedic twist, and it could bring some hope to what can be despair sometimes, but we will keep on keeping on. Justine Brooke Murray of the Media Research Center, MRC TV for short. Always a pleasure to have your analysis on the right side of history.
Great seeing you as always. Thank you.
And as we await Karoline Leavitt to give a press briefing in roughly 34 minutes scheduled from now, you see there those big, beautiful flagpoles, roughly a month old now. President Trump putting that on the north and south lawns of the White House. And one of my favorite moments recently of President Trump, when he went over with the White House press pool and they're asking him a plethora of questions, and he said, no, what's really interesting is the way you pour the sand into the flagpole. And it might seem like silly or funny at the moment, but just like he did serving McDonald's to the drive-through folks, he worked longer at McDonald's than Kamala Harris ever did, as she claimed to, but we know that wasn't true, along with other things. It's his focus to the detail. He's a subject matter expert and obsessed especially with building and all things real estate, design, hospitality, the golf world. And we know from The Apprentice just how great of a CEO he was and how he brought all of that to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to make America great again. Thank you to our sponsors here at RSBN's Live Desk. The free shipping sale, the MyCross, save 50% when getting the exact replica MyCross, both in male and female styles, from none other than Mr. Mike Lindell, the purveyor of free speech, the defender of election integrity. Also his MyPillow bed sheets going for $24.98, and the best deal in the entire land right now, the multi-use MyPillow 2.0, $9.98. It will beat most lunch deals. Call today, don't delay, because after all, we're in the good old US of A, thanks be to God. 800-836-7566, mypillow.com/RSBN. It's your go-to, all made in the great state of Minnesota. Thank you to Mike Lindell, the master marketer, as President Trump puts it, for mypillow.com/RSBN. Over 2,000 items at the website to not only have a great evening, but a great morning with rest, and items that will make sure you do just that. mypillow.com/RSBN. And thank you to Kalshi as well. Kalshi.com/RSBN with questions like, will Elon Musk create a new political party, as we asked Justine Brooke Murray of MRC? Or will President Trump pardon anyone this year, including the great Steve Bannon, fighting to make America great again? Kalshi.com/RSBN. Scan the QR code. Trade on anything out there. And I mean anything, especially sports, music, culture, politics. It's within the Beltway. It's outside of the Beltway. It's in your neck of the woods, and it's fun. Go check it out today, kalshi.com/RSBN. And this has been a week of wins for the Trump administration. If you go back to the SCOTUS ruling, the Department of Education can now begin the process of dismantling just that, the Department of Ed. And Linda McMahon is the chief there as secretary. She is doing it to get rid of the job in its entirety, to bring this back to school choice, to bring this back to the states as it should be, because the 10th Amendment, it's a pesky Bill of Rights that exists thanks to the Federalist Party, that movement. And Senator Ted Cruz actually wrote this in Harvard, his thesis dating back to his time in law school, why the Federalist argument won out, and thank God that it did in that time, because the Anti-Federalists said, hey, we already wrote the Constitution. We're good to go. We have these 13 colonies now, one nation, everything will be hunky-dory. The Federalists stood up and said, under Alexander Hamilton and other great leaders, we need this Bill of Rights. We need it intact in order to guarantee these inalienable rights: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, free speech, gun rights, the right to private property, the right to house people if you wish to do it, not being forced to, as the British military forced itself into private property to house and quarter their soldiers during the Revolution. And that ended up with 10 Bill of Rights, the first in the Bill of Rights. And number 10, states' rights. It's the laboratories of democracy. It's the brilliance of this constitutional republic that instead of having this strong centralized government that controls every aspect of your life, you might have state and local governments that your neighbor serves you, or vice versa. You go knock on their door and talk to them about it over a cup of coffee or maybe dinner. Amazing to think about the brilliance of our founders and the 56 men who pledged their life, liberty, their sacred honor to one another, trust. And they knew all well that they could have been hanged in the street. They knew the threat that came from the most powerful empire at the time. It's what T.S. Dixon talks about on the network with the second turning of Western classical thought. It was the 1776 revolution that brought us a constitutional republic, that we could self-govern, that we could do it, per Mr. Franklin's words, have a constitutional republic if you can keep it. And we've been able to do that through countless struggles, through tragedy, and through brilliance and innovation. Imagine the world for a moment, this young nation of nearly 250 years. Imagine a world without America. It would be hard to do so, because you have a president now who's negotiating peace on a global scale. Look at the African nations and the leaders who visited him recently on the heels of the foreign ministers from the Republic of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in fact, fighting over 30 years in tribal warfare, 6 million people perishing because of those conflicts, the most in the world since World War II. President Trump brought everyone to the table, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and African leaders nominating this president for the Nobel Peace Prize, as well as Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, who was here last week offering up that nomination, as well as other congressmen, including Buddy Carter in the peach state of Georgia, pursuing an open United States Senate seat. This is the change agent. This is the movement, a populist Republican mantle of make America great again. Make it healthy again, safe again, strong again, wealthy again. And in turn, a movement for all of us. Nearly 80 million Americans voting for that last year, but countless others joining it in a celebration of this great nation. Even Ken Lagone of Home Depot, the co-founder, he's always been involved in politics here and there, donating to different campaigns, but he was a big fan of Chris Christie way back in 2016, and he said on the Squawk Box recently, a great economic show, that he was actually against President Trump, and the anchors were calling him out for it, and he said, well, the proof is in the pudding. Look at what happened in Iran. Look at the peace through strength. Look at a man who has made promises, he's kept promises, and he might go down as one of the greatest presidents in American history. And we here on RSBN Live could not be more pleased with the countless issues that this president has tackled. In fact, bringing $92 billion in infrastructure with private business, with public entities, with energy and AI to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And how important it was that The vice president was in Pennsylvania yesterday as well to tout the one big beautiful bill, the successes of making permanent the Trump tax credits, no tax on tips and overtime. And the average family of four can now keep $10,900 on average of their own income that they have worked hard for, whether it's a single income or dual income household. So this is a golden era. This is the time for choosing. This is a time you were born for such a time as this. As we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at the White House, the James S. Brady briefing room that we get really on a regular basis, at least every week. And she is the GOAT of press secretaries, as President Trump and Karoline Leavitt traveling on Air Force One to Pennsylvania just the other day. And he pointed and said, "I have the superstar with me." And it's very true, as he had a press gaggle and discussed countless different issues with the media just this past Tuesday. But every day it's a press conference with such access to the commander-in-chief that we did not see over the time of the auto pen years. We did not see during Barack Hussein as Obama as well, even at their times having issues with the press because they felt they were being treated unfairly. Well, if you don't show up for press conferences, if the president isn't accessible over the course of not only a few days or weeks, but hundreds of days at times, you start to wonder who's in control of the government. There's no question who is at this moment, and that's Donald Trump and his extraordinary cabinet working overtime to make America great again. Now let's go to a quick commercial break as we see the mic checks going on in the James S. Brady briefing room. Moments from now, we'll have Karoline Leavitt giving a White House press briefing. We'll take it there live to you at RSBN.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
And welcome back to RSBN's Live Desk. I'm Robert McNeely. As you see a live shot there of the White House, and Old Glory, may she forever fly, as President Trump installing 2 new flagpoles, as you know, in the north lawn, south lawn of the White House. And each time he goes by, he just looks up at it, and you can see the pride in his face. And you can see the righteous indignation, again, the righteous indignation, the anger think that was in his heart. You saw it in his eyes yesterday, too, as the Angel families came together for the Halt Fentanyl Act, hallmark legislation, moving these deadly poisons into the Substance 1 category to be prosecuted as felonies, but also minimum sentences to be offered at 10 years if any terrorist, evil animal, well, I mean, really, should I call them animals? Because animals sometimes treat each other better than these vermin that claim to be human beings. But those who would even think about trafficking this illicit poison and materials to kill those best and brightest among us. President Trump joining Angel families yesterday in the East Room of the White House to sign that legislation into law, the Halt Fentanyl Act, as we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing. And in case you missed it, there is a recap video which we will play for you now.
It's an honor to be with you. Today we strike a righteous blow to the drug dealers, narcotic traffickers, and criminal cartels that we've all been hearing so much about for so many years. And we take a historic step toward justice for every family touched by the fentanyl scourge as we sign the Halt Fentanyl Act into law. With this bill, we are officially and permanently classifying all fentanyl-related substances as Schedule 1 narcotics, meaning anyone caught trafficking these illicit poisons will be punished with a mandatory 10-year minimum sentence in prison. We're joined today by just a few of the millions of families ravaged by this scourge.
This is what we voted for. Mr. President, God bless you. God bless our angel families who are all here with us today.
So today, on behalf of all Americans who have lost a loved one to opioids, we renew our vow to liberate America from this horrible plague, and we'll be getting the drug dealers, pushers, and peddlers off our street. And we will not rest until we have ended the drug overdose epidemic.
Be sure to tune in tonight to the Voice of Reason at 6 o'clock as we have Ann Fundner, who you saw there speaking yesterday in the East Room. We'll talk about her son Weston and the legacy he has left to save countless thousands, if not millions of Americans with his story, their story as a family. And words can never console what these people are going through. But together as angel families, as moms and dads and brothers and sisters, extended family members as well, they have a really close personal friendship now with their commander-in-chief, who is working hard in a bipartisan manner to stop this crisis. And that's why it's important to digest with everything in the news, to look specifically at the successes, especially with the Halt Fentanyl Act, especially with securing the border through the One Big Beautiful Bill, also with 10,000 of the 300,000 children lost under the Auto Pen administration now being brought back into society, or at least into safety. President Trump announcing that last Friday from the South Lawn of the White House before boarding Marine One. So when you get into the entire story or the narrative of personality and who said what when, and binders, and sometimes self-absorbed social media influencers, just think about the real successes that are happening right now. And we here at RSBN, and I can speak for myself on the Voice of Reason, we will continue to follow the trails, the breadcrumbs, wherever it leads, no matter what proves to be the truth and the fact of the matter. And that's why we exist, to bring you real coverage, to bring you what the legacy media won't. They would not talk about the Halt Fentanyl Act. They would not talk about that story over the course of the last 24 hours. It's just buried because it doesn't fulfill a narrative of a globalist, uniparty, far-left League of Shadows that wants the poisoning of Americans. And if you were to ask me this 10 years ago, I would have said, no way this is happening with the trafficking and the things that would take place under administrations that kept a border open. And that includes those who worked for George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, Bill Clinton to a certain extent, and God knows for sure the Auto Pen. They all have blood on their hands. And I really wonder, how do they sleep at night? I'd love to ask that question of the former commanders-in-chief, the living predecessors of President Trump. How do you sleep at night? Because we know Barack Hussein Obama, he was the one that put the kids in cages. We saw those 2014 pictures, and somehow that was pointed in the direction and blamed on President Trump by the legacy media. And somehow they forget that in 1995, the State of the Union, with climate hero and the founder of the World Wide Web, Al Gore himself, the vice president at the time, cheering for his commander-in-chief as he said, "We are a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws." What changed with the modern Demon Rat Party? What changed with Barack Hussein Obama's phone and pen that he claimed to be against illegal immigration? In fact, he deported a lot of people in the process, but still had an open border. This president handling all of that, and I'm sure we'll hear more of those details moments from now with Karoline Leavitt holding a press briefing. I'd like to thank angelpaste.com, a great sponsor here at the network out of Spring, Texas. And let me let you in on a little secret. Well, not so much of a secret. You saw it here on the network. I tried the Miracle Cream during the campaign, and I loved it so much that I have some of my own. It's the original Miracle Cream, vitamin B infused. Really helps with dry hands and irritation, because who needs that when you're out and about? Also, there are other options, the Immunity Orange option. Vitamin C infused, also non-GMO, no chemicals. How about that facial spray for guys and gals? And what about the all-natural mosquito repellent, something needed as you celebrate America's birthday, which just passed, or just a summer holiday getaway at the lake house or to your favorite resort. Always good to have against the mosquitoes as you blast off those fireworks celebrating this golden era as we approach America 250. AngelPace.com, they're Christian owned. They hire veterans, again, out of Spring, Texas, the Houston Metroplex, right off of that big, beautiful Gulf of America. We love the Lone Star State, and we love AngelPace.com. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history. And if you like what you see, we don't hold back. We pull every punch. We just tell it how it is here at the network. We were your rally network for 10 years. We are now your go-to live desk to bring you all things inside and outside of the Beltway, full and unbridled access coverage to your president, your vice president, the 119th Congress. In fact, all these rescission packages that are moving very quickly. Amazing to see a Congress actually seemingly doing their job right now. So rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. We kindly ask for your donations to compete with the legacy media who would rather just turn us off. But we know in 2025, streamlining becoming very, very popular. Not only the size and scope of government, but live streaming of the access to watch that government, as you see there now in the Press Brady briefing room. But we understand, too, that some of our great viewers, they like to mail things like a check, a money order, or just plain cash, which we deeply appreciate here at the network. I'll give you that address. It is 1550 Opelika Road, that's Suite 6, Box 344. And that is in the most beautiful, fantastic, wonderful, in fact, the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. 36830, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama. 36830. Please send a check, money order, or that big, beautiful cash that you might get from no tax on overtime over to the network. Thank you so much for your support on the right side of history. And if you like to read about specific issues, including a wonderful Sunday devotional that I've actually added to my devotionals before I go to church on Sunday mornings, why not reach out to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. That's where you can sign up, like, share, and subscribe, and share everything that we're doing, getting America First updates and exclusive offers right to your inbox. Because I can't tell you the amount of people that will say, oh my goodness, I didn't even know you guys still exist, or I didn't know you were working on a live desk and bringing all of this unbridled access. to the government we put into place back on November 5th. I said, that's okay. I understand there's a lot of information out there, this 24/7 news cycle with the new media, and that new media seat in the Brady press briefing room brought to you by the Trump administration. But you can add this to your repertoire and not worry so much about getting too many emails, but just great devotionals and great written newsletters on the hot topics of the day, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. As that room begins to fill, it is scheduled for about 10 minutes from now. The GOAT, Karoline Leavitt, the superstar, as President Trump put it, just the other day as they traveled to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for Senator McCormick's Energy and AI Summit in the Steel City of Pittsburgh. Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing on all of the impressive issues of the day. And it is quite impressive the way this administration has been moving now nearly 6 months into taking back our government peacefully and patriotically. One of my favorite moments that I'm enjoying reminiscing about with our great staff here at RSBN is the one video of President Trump taking the oath of office, but I can't remember who the user was, but they actually put behind it the moment where Rafiki in The Lion King says it's time. And then you hear the Hans Zimmer immortal classic song, This Land, and President Trump walks out to take that oath of office. It's oddly inspiring and moving as well, just given that ornate capital of ours, that Capitol Dome, and the great patriots. And he was surrounded by some deep state globalists, but his former presidents of the United States, the former commanders in chief, that really harmed this nation. And I hate to say it, but President Trump is cleaning up the mess left by Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and the Autopen, and their bureaucrats and the deep state uniparty of Republicans and Democrats in the swamp who came together to bankrupt Detroit, but instead also bankroll Beijing. We remember the Autopen as he clanked glasses, that champagne glass, with the then vice premier of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, who now rules with a totalitarian fist, who now has flags of the hammer and sickle, trying to be the new Soviet Union of 2025. We saw what he did to his predecessor, removing him from Communist Party proceedings. The man is a monster, and that's who Joe Biden, as a senator from Delaware, decided to toast. And then he so-called claimed himself as the boy from Scranton Joe. No, you're a traitor. And so is your family. And God willing, justice will be brought to you, we know, in the next life, but perhaps in this life, you will face liberty and justice for all, as was promised and guaranteed by our founders. Now, in turn, it's a complete 180 with the Trump administration making America healthy again. In case you missed it, USDA Chief Secretary Brooke Rollins, who did some amazing work at AFPI in between the administrations, detailing how we'll make ice cream not only affordable again, but also healthy, delicious, and without chemicals. Let's go to that video now.
I just want to commend the leadership, Michael and the whole team and everyone you represent at IDFA, and all the dairy farmers and ice cream producers they represent, for taking on this voluntary, proactive effort to eliminate the use of artificial colors in ice cream products by the end of 2027. Because of this historic partnership between USDA and HHS, and I will say it is an unprecedented partnership, but also because of leadership of organizations like IDFA and again, all the farmers and producers they represent, we are driving meaningful change to make America healthy again. I also want to acknowledge a lot of other partners, the Consumer Brands Association, Tyson Foods, PepsiCo, J.M. Smucker, Nestle, Hershey, ConAgra Brands, Kraft Heinz, and General Mills, each of which have recently made similar commitments to remove artificial colors from their products. Just last week, the Consumer Brands Association announced a voluntary commitment to encourage the makers of America's food and beverage products to remove certified food, drug, and cosmetic colors from products served in our schools by the start of next year's school year, 2026. The beauty of America is the role that private enterprise has always played, but will continue to play, and perhaps an even bigger role, in voluntarily shaping policies for the good of future generations.
This cabinet, a group of subject matter experts, also very handy and good with the media. They know what they're doing, and they're putting it all on the line to serve this great nation. Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike who make up President Trump's cabinet, who are willing to have those tough questions and have those large debates. They're big personalities, but they're also experts in their respective fields. And Brooke Rollins doing perhaps the finest job at the United States Department of Agriculture. Now, thank you to our sponsors before this wonderful press briefing with none other than the GOAT, Karoline Leavitt, President Trump rightly calling her the superstar. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to for ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, methylene blue, NAD+, and 200+ essential medications, in fact, as well as mebendazole. In order to fight those bacterial and viral infections, we know that ivermectin is a medication primarily used to treat parasitic infections in humans and animals. It gained significant attention during the COVID-19 pandemic due to the claims about its potential to treat or prevent the virus, though most health authorities, including the FDA and the World Health Organization, we know that evil entity, have stated there's insufficient evidence to support its use for COVID-19 outside clinical trials. But we have real-time summary of all that. Also, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN has that as well. And we hope you go there for all of the life-saving medications, as we are joined by All Family Pharmacy's Lars Larson, an expert in his own right. Sir, a pleasure to have you on the network as always. You know, President Trump's push to make America healthy again is clearly gaining traction, especially with today's announcement cracking down on are these harmful additives in our food supply, whether it comes from Secretary Kennedy or Secretary Rollins. What does this signal for the future of the health of America?
I think that the government is watching out for the health of America, and I think that Trump is doing the right thing. I mean, frankly, I like to eat whatever I can eat that is the healthiest stuff I can. The problem is when you go out to the marketplace, oftentimes there will be people who offer things up that are very attractive to customers. We've seen it happen for years. And unfortunately, Americans have gained a lot of weight. For a long time, I was about 50 or 60 pounds heavier, and it didn't make any sense. I had to eat more healthy. Now, you can do that on your own. I don't necessarily believe that when you say, well, I'm just going to eat all natural. Well, what is natural these days? You know, what comes out of the field? Yeah. Depending on what they've done to it in the field before it ever got to your table. Yeah, there's a reason to be concerned about that. I'm even glad for this, even though I'm a type 2 diabetic, so I keep my sugar intake to a very low level. I'm glad to see them get Coca-Cola to change its formula and get rid of the fructose, what corn syrup basically is what they were flavoring the Coke with. I remember years ago, before I got type 2 diabetes, I used to go to a store where I knew I could buy what they called Mexican Coke, which was the Coke in the old-fashioned bottle that actually had cane sugar in it. A friend had told me to do that, and I tried it. I thought, this stuff tastes dramatically different than the stuff we usually buy. That's because the so-called Mexican Coke, because it was still bottled in Mexico, is why they called it that, was made with a cane sugar, and it tasted delicious, much better than the corn syrup variety. And now, I think, based on Trump's leadership, Coca-Cola has said, to heck with that 40 years of corn syrup. We're going to use actual cane sugar, and we'll make Coke better, too.
Well, an absolute brilliant move. Speaking of that, you can go down to the Coke Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, if you'd like, and try all the different varieties around the world. And the biggest thing I've noticed from tourists and friends who enjoyed that lovely city and that museum, the fact that they said, I didn't realize the ingredients are actually real in the international products of Coca-Cola because of different regulations. So what options do people have when they want to take control over their health care, whether it's simply the real cane sugar in Coca-Cola or even just the options to bring life-saving medication under cost control so that they can live out the pursuit of happiness as guaranteed in our founding documents?
Well, I got to tell you something. One of the things I've always believed in is the marketplace. And thankfully, All Family Pharmacy is doing exactly that. They're saying you need to get a hold of medications and the system is denying them to you. Fine. We work with doctors in all 50 states and those doctors write prescriptions. So this isn't any fly-by-night hocus pocus operation on the internet. You talk to a doctor, you explain what the problem is, the doctor sees the need for a prescription, writes the prescription, and then they send the meds right to your door. Now, it's very simple because no insurance company's involved. There are times where I know people are glad to have insurance because they say, wow, this medication would have cost a lot. The problem is there are times I've walked into the pharmacy before All Family Pharmacy, and they've said, oh, well, yeah, we don't carry that particular variety. I mean, to a large extent, pharmacies are forced to carry the stuff that is approved by government insurance. So Medicare and Medicaid will only cover certain things. And you'll say, well, that medication isn't off limits, is it? And they say, no, it's allowed. We just don't carry it because people are following the insurance company's directive. They buy what the insurance company tells them to. And I recall one time when my wife was told by her doctor, I want you to take this medication, but I want you to take the brand name. He said, it's a couple of dollars more. I went to the pharmacy and they said, we don't carry it. Well, why not? Well, because it's a couple of dollars more, the insurance, mostly government insurance, doesn't cover it. So therefore, why would we put it on the shelves of the pharmacy if we're not going to find the majority of our customers asking for it? So in that case, you're denied choice. You go to All Family Pharmacy and you get that choice because you talk to a real doctor. They talk about what problems you're having, what you're seeking, the medication for it, write the prescription, send the prescription to your front door. You bypass the local pharmacy that's run by a corporation that has to pay attention to what the insurance companies are covering. You pay the cost, and then if you want to submit it to insurance, you can do that as well. But I got to tell you something. It is such a simple system. It works so well. And the convenience, if nothing else. I mean, how many of you have had your doctor call in a prescription, the pharmacy, and the doctor will tell you, I've called it in the pharmacy, or my staff has. Then you go to the pharmacy and say, oh, yeah, we have that here, but we haven't filled it yet. Come back in 2 hours. And then you come back in 2 hours and they say, well, we got busy, so it's still not ready yet. You know what? I'd like to have it delivered right to my front door. I mean, it's fantastic. People are having food delivered to their front door, their groceries delivered. In this case, getting your medications on a regular scheduled basis, because I hear you talking about hydroxychloroquine, membezadol, and ivermectin. Those are familiar because they've been controversial drugs, but this is also your daily maintenance meds as well. So I take things like metformin and lisinopril. Those are going to be familiar to people who are type 2s or have mild hypertension, which is what I've got. You might not be surprised that having dealt with Joe Biden for 4 years that I would have mild high blood pressure, but it's true. But those daily maintenance meds can come from All Family Pharmacy as well. So I don't want people to think, well, that's what All Family Pharmacy is about, that it's NAD+, membezadol, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. No, it's not just that. It's the regular routine stuff like oil changes. I mean, it's the stuff you have to get every month, and it becomes a big pain in the backside to deal with insurance companies and pharmacies. All Family Pharmacy can straighten that out for you.
Sounds exactly what Americans want, to get rid of all of the loopholes and simply get rid of the bureaucracy, the red tape, and actually know what's not only on their doorstep, but what's on their table. As a cancer survivor myself, Lars, it's important that I have a regular subscription to Synthroid specifically, and I've definitely been in those long lines on a daily medication I need because I don't have a thyroid as a result of it. So I know what it can be like when you're dealing with the big pharma. Are there other hacks you have health-wise in order to make sure that you're up and bright, ready to go to dominate in a career field that you've done so well at over the course of now years and years and decades to bring the truth to the American people.
Try half a century.
I was going to go there, but I wanted to
when I tell
celebrate
people
with you.
50 years in radio, but that was this year, and say, oh, all that does is it means I'm old. No, but here's a hack for you, and it's one that we saw contradicted during the pandemic. Ever since I was a little kid, you would hear adults saying, the doctor told me or encouraged me to get a second opinion, sometimes even a third opinion. I've had personal friends as an adult who've said, well, I've got one problem or another. One friend had a glioblastoma, a brain cancer, and do you think she only went to one doctor? No, she got a second and a third opinion. That made sense. And then all of a sudden during the pandemic, we were told there is one answer, and one answer only. You will take it, follow the science. And an awful lot of Americans instinctively said, I know I did, said, hold on a second, you're telling me you're the be-all and end-all? I mean, we've had this problem for science going all the way back to when they used to make people drink hemlock if they didn't go with the current conventional wisdom you're saying that the sun does not orbit around the Earth? You're saying the Earth is not the center of the universe? Why, off with your head. Now, I'm tired of that kind of science, and I don't think it played any better back then than it does today when they say, it's the science, 6 feet apart, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and all the rest of that nonsense. So my hack is get other opinions and do some research on your own, and then go to your doctor and say, hey, I think I've found something that could address my problem. And if your doctor says, well, I've never read any of that stuff, and well, okay, then maybe you need to go to a second doctor and say, hey, doc, what's the problem here? And could this address it? And then talk to the folks at All Family Pharmacy.
I have a confession to make, Lars. I actually left my membership on the table of Rotary International, which is generally a great organization.
It is.
Because
generally.
We have a situation where they were actually saying end polio with their mask, but we love having you on. Mr. Lars Larson of allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. We're up against a hard break. Karoline Leavitt's right around the corner here. Look forward to having you again on the right side of history, sir.
Give Karoline my best.
Will do. And Karoline Leavitt, the White House GOAT press secretary, the superstar, as President Trump has put it, moments away from taking that podium. And thank you to Lars Larson, the spokesperson for All Family Pharmacy. And you can find all of those great medications, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, as we're seeing a full room of media colleagues ready for what's sure to be an engaging press conference. It always is, but so many questions on the table, so many successes in the last couple of weeks of the Trump administration. And we are right here on the right side of history with you, the American people, to bring this unbridled access to your government, the one you put into place back on November 5th of last year. A government that is constitutionally sound, that has a Supreme Court of the United States, as well as other Article III courts upholding what they're doing, because they are doing what is granted to them under Article II, that pesky Constitution. The far left, the League of Shadows, the globalists, the communists, they want to go away from that. They have an agenda at hand, along with many times a legacy media that does not serve you properly, the American people. And that's why here at this live desk are committed to bringing you everything in real time without even spending a dime. Although you might want to on our next sponsor, mypillow.com/RSBN. The free shipping sale, My Cross, save 50% with the actual cross, the replica that Mike Lindell wears on a daily basis. Also the MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98. How about the MyPillow 2.0, the multi-use MyPillows, in fact, going for under $10. That's better than any lunch deal out there, even in the loveliest village on the plains right here in Auburn, Alabama. So call today. Don't delay. 800-836-7566. Support Mr. Mike Lindell and RSBN. Shop now at mypillow.com/RSBN. You can save with code RSBN. He is the purveyor of free speech, defender of election integrity, and really all things America. His products made right here in America in the beautiful state of Minnesota. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN with over 2,000 products, and Mike Lindell for sponsoring us here at RSBN's Live Desk. And there is a live shot now of the James S. Brady briefing room at the White House in the West Wing. It's where the media comes together to ask the superstar, as President Trump put it, Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, just what is happening on a daily basis, hour by hour, with this government. And the media having access to this president really unlike any other modern administration. We had a situation with Barack Hussein Obama and the auto pen where they were missing in action on countless days, weeks, sometimes months, not even addressing the media personally. This president seems to have a press conference every several hours, whether it's on a trip aboard Marine One or Air Force One en route to it, or it's simply going into the press conference room himself to talk on crucial issues, or even in the Oval Office as he signs crucial executive orders and legislation to make America great again. So we will await that as we thank Lars Larson from All Family Pharmacy. Always great to interview the GOAT in his own right of radio and television. Someone, as he put it, has been doing it for 50 years, the big 50, decades now, bringing you really the truth. And thank God for that. You think about American media, where it's been, where it's gone, and where it is going. And it's people like Rush Limbaugh who really started it off, who took on the FCC and the entities in American government. I think about the communist Dick Durbin, who's retiring this year out of the prairie state of Illinois. He was my senator really for as long as I've been around, since I've been 9 years old. Think about that. He's been a United States senator since 1997, and he was in Congress even way before that in the House. Is our Congress meant to be a lifetime career? I think not. I think the founders are very clear about that in their writings, and the different founding documents that were brought to us nearly 250 years ago. I think they're very clear about leave your farm, go and serve, and then send your neighbor, regardless of your background and your occupation, because the revolving doors of ideas and dialogue and debate done peacefully and patriotically, that's what best serves the American people. And maybe we can make it illegal once and for all for people like Nancy Pelosi to do insider trading and make millions and millions of dollars off the hardworking taxpayers of this great nation. But we thank the people who always were willing to call out those questions when legacy media did not. When cable decided, oh, we have to go along to get along. Well, we don't do that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Great legends, God rest his soul, like Rush Limbaugh, he did not do that. He cut in right to the heart of the matter, the questions that matter to you, the American people, and used a vehicle like radio to get that message out to the masses and to fight for the principles that have made this country great. And we will do that same thing here on the right side of history with a live desk that brought you a decade of countless rallies and talking to you, the American people, of what brought you the courage and the inspiration to stand out there in the heat or the cold to see your favorite president, and really a rock concert, a love fest, as President Trump has put it on countless occasions. In the most recent one that we did, Des Moines, Iowa, if you caught that, a great start, really a kickoff to America 250 to celebrate 250 years of this great nation of ours. As we have a full press briefing room, the James S. Brady briefing room right there at the White House. Momentarily, the White House GOAT of press secretaries, really the GOAT of all press secretaries of all time, Karoline Leavitt, to address the press pool at the White House. And so we have many successes that have happened over the course of a couple of weeks now. And the most successful June any modern president has had from a G7 summit that brought another trade deal with UK Prime Minister Mr. Starmer then to Washington to end the 12 days war between Israel and Iran with the amazing technology of B-2 bombers undetected, followed by Tomahawks to knock out the nuclear program of Iran, to a NATO summit that brought 5% GDP shared across with all member nations, with the exception of Spain. And as President Trump put it with his multiple letters to other countries, Spain will be paying tariffs. They will be paying and making up for it in one way, shape, or form. We've now had somewhat of a change in American foreign policy with the Patriot missiles being purchased by Europe and NATO at 100%. Now, this is because Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, has gone back on his word with President Trump. As our great president has put it, I was on the phone with him on a regular basis. All of a sudden, we're coming to peace terms, and then he blows up something. And it should not stand. The targeting of civilians, even the continuation of this stalemate war with which no one will win. We know that Zelensky doesn't have the cards, but we know Putin is a maniac in his own right. It's a war, it's a conflict between two nations of great cultures, the Ukrainian and the Russian people, a lot like the American people, good people that want to thrive and survive and also continue on the great traditions of two fantastic nations. They just happen to have terrible leadership. President Trump saying we have 50 days, now roughly around that 47-day mark for Putin to come to the table, or secondary tariffs against Russia at 100%. We've seen the success in that with countless countries. There's a new free trade deal with Vietnam. There's one with Indonesia that was announced this week that the legacy media really does not want you to know about, where there's a 19% reciprocal tariff rate that Indonesia has to pay. We don't have to pay them anything in turn, but both nations will be able to trade in a free and fair way and bring prosperity to all citizens in both the Republic of Indonesia and this great constitutional republic known as the United States of America. And we have a situation that's developing with the Epstein files. We'll continue to stay on it. We have someone like Alan Dershowitz who's claiming to have seen the names and has said that no one in the administration is on that list. You also have to worry about, as people like Bill O'Reilly has said, Alan Dershowitz has said as well, if someone's on the list and they simply did business with this Jeffrey Epstein, whether he was a mortgage investor or did real estate deals or whatever he did do, or if he was a double agent for our government, for another government, makes you ask a multitude of questions as to why sometimes our intelligence agency seems to be against the right side, the correct side of history, and against our own people. But we'll dive into that more as we know that James Comey's daughter, she was still working at the DOJ. She's been fired as of yesterday, and good, because there's a clear agenda there as Comey and Brennan being investigated from prior administrations and from the work they did to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States, that being President Donald Trump. That's why he fired James Comey in the first place. And why would a former FBI director put 8647 in seashells and then say that he ran upon this very interesting thing on a beach and then put that out on Instagram and on his social media in order to drum up some sort of far left psychopathic support while trying to sell books? Well, all those questions will, God willing, be answered in the next few weeks, months, hopefully not years, but we'll stay on it here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and we'll dive more into those crucial issues tonight on the Voice of Reason at 6 o'clock. So we hope you tune in then, 6 o'clock Eastern, as we are preparing for Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing on today's regular coverage on the live desk and those televisions going up there. So it looks like we'll have somewhat of a show and tell today on countless different topics, including the Halt Fentanyl Act, which was signed into law yesterday by President Trump. Substance 1 abusers, criminals, and foreign terrorist entities There's now a minimum. If you traffic this poison in this country, that's 10 years in prison. Full stop. Mic drop. Protecting America's finest and brightest against this American poison that's come in through our southern border. Simply should not happen, thanks to the Chinese Communist Party, thanks to Mexican cartels, among other foreign terrorist entities. And it's advocacy, it's education. That's why we talk about it here. It's not to scare you, it's not to make you upset. It's just the reality of the world that we live in right now. And sadly, many people in that room, members of the legacy media, probably will not talk about fentanyl. They won't talk about poisoning. They won't talk about Ann Funder's son, Weston. And we'll hear from her later tonight on The Voice of Reason, an exclusive interview with a beautiful soul. She is inside and out, someone who lost her handsome young son to this terrible poisoning and has to live with that every day. In turn, she has turned that pain into advocacy. And not only our thoughts and prayers here at the network with everyone dealing with this on a daily basis, but we exist to get that message out there, to bring you the truth wherever it does lead. So you can trust this great network to do just that for you, as it's close to 1:20 on the East Coast. Good afternoon, America, and good morning to our friends on the West Coast. If you're just tuning in now, I'm Robert McNeely. This is RSBN. It's our live desk as we await White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing in the James S. Brady briefing room in the West Wing of the White House. President Trump also on a barn burner to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He was joined by Karoline, the superstar, as he put it, on Tuesday to visit the Steel City of Pittsburgh at the invitation of business leaders, union leaders, and also Senator Dave McCormick, who has hit the ground running in his own right 6 months into his tenure as the newest United States senator for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, defeating really a legacy candidate. Bob Casey was a senator for 12 or so years, along with his father, a big name politician in the Commonwealth and someone who was once an old school Democrat, once one of the only pro-life Democrats in the Congress. That all changed with the narrow thinking and the tunnel vision of No Hips Hakeem and the Palestinian Senator Chucky Schumer. You can always guarantee that he will jump on your back, cover your eyes, and say, "Guess who?" You don't want that. Chucky Schumer, a bad guy in Washington, D.C., who was all about power, who was all about his own legacy. And the irony of it, he'll probably lose to the far left lunatic known as AOC come next year. We'll be watching all of that, but our thoughts and prayers are with the people of New York, and we hope with New York City, a new development in the mayoral race. The lost candidate from the Democrat nomination, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, is seeking to run as an independent in that race. So you will now have what was a three-way race between the Communist Democrat nominee Zoran, also the Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa, the incumbent former Democrat turned independent Eric Adams, former police officer and commander, and the former governor Andrew Cuomo. It should be one showcased for the ages, and we'll stay on that here on the right side of history, because the largest city in America, if that fell to communism, would be a scary situation. Zoran Mandani wants to socialize everything in the city, including markets and stands where you can find good deals on a daily basis. That's something we'll watch here as he, I'm sure, used the free market to get those nice, shiny, bright white teeth. That's the thing about far-left communists. They like to use capitalism when it benefits them, but it's not allowed for anyone else. Thanks to our sponsors here on the right side of history, All Family Fun. Spoke with Lars Larson, the spokesperson for that great organization, but we know that ivermectin is a medication primarily used to treat parasitic infections, but NAD+, methylene blue, ivermectin, as I mentioned, hydrochloroquine, mebendazole, all became the significant attention during the COVID-19 pandemic for their viral and bacterial fighting principles. But the FDA and the WHO they did not want you to necessarily know that. And there is great evidence for these outside trials for these medications, along with 200 essential medications for you to get right at your door. As Lars put it, you can order it right now at 1:23 Eastern, and it will show up to your door by 1:23 p.m. Eastern tomorrow with no red tape, no insurance necessary. You need a pharmaceutical note or prescription from your doctor, but these doctors, pharmacists, healthcare providers, all willing, ready, and able to get that to you in a moment's notice. They also have emergency medical kits, antibiotics that could save your life. And if there's a storm out there, literally or figuratively speaking, you might as well have your medicine cabinet stocked and ready to go. You can also take these medications on the road for your summer vacation. So again, NAD+, methylene blue, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, mebendazole, and much, much, much more. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use code RSBN10. That's 10% off today. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. As we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at the White House. The room is full, and if you have not been in that room, it's quite packed. It's tight. It looks a lot bigger on camera than it actually is in person. It once was the location of the White House swimming pool, converted into this press briefing room. And brighter colors now over the years. If you're a fan of the show The West Wing, which was based off of Dee Dee Myers, who was the press secretary for President Bill Clinton, a little more dark and ominous colors, not necessarily by choice, but it was the design of the time. Nice to see it a little bit refurbished over the years and bright and accessible for now the new media. So many people in there, they have to stand up before you just sat down. If you remember old movies and old television shows, many more in the sphere of influence and ideas, which is great because to ensure a constitutional republic, a free nation, the more voices, the better. Right, left, and center, so you can make your decision. And we here are proud to be with you at RSBN Live. And a fun little story about Dee Dee Myers. She got to meet her a few years back in college. And I had run the college Republicans at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign during the election of Barack Hussein Obama. This is 2008. So I was not the most popular person on campus at the time. And I asked her, I'm like, Miss Myers, tell me about, it was a book signing for Why Women Should Rule the World. It's a great read. I highly recommend it about her experience. And she was one of those old school Democrats, truly a moderate, representing to the best of her ability how to be a good and faithful, loyal press secretary to the commander-in-chief. And she said, she wrote in the book, I'll never forget it, "Dear Robert, don't you worry, the pendulum does swing." And there's so much truth in that, as we've seen over the course of these last few years in American political history. Who would have thought a decade ago, as the future president and his lovely wife, our prestigious First Lady Melania Trump, came down the Golden Escalator, a building he built on Fifth Avenue, his own design, his own home residence. It's a 3-level penthouse layered with gold. The man of The Apprentice, the man of golf courses, the man of vineyards, the man of hospitality and hotels, a man synonymous with entertainment, especially in those New York circles. Remember shows like Sex and the City that had him in the background with the main characters stating that what's it like to be in Manhattan without a martini, without good conversation, and without Donald Trump making a business deal in the corner of this fine establishment. And he put all of that to the side to become the President of the United States. And it's nothing short of extraordinary. Because we've had generals, we've had high-profile people ascend to the highest office in the land, but really, when has it been the case that an independent citizen, a private citizen, would take this on, of course, with a big public name, a big public demeanor? He was in everyone's household on prime time on NBC for nearly 14 years, showcasing his brilliance of the art of the deal and the art of the comeback, but would then use that to save this country. And then in turn, President Trump saved by God on July 13th of last year in a field in Butler, Pennsylvania, that took the life of Corey Campitor, the hero firefighter who shielded himself over his wife and children, were simply enjoying a political rally. Something that should never happen in America. And our thoughts and prayers are with those who have been bold, who have suffered because of their political belief system. And that's why we here on the right side of history, always with those who are willing to stand up and be bold and be brave. Because Corey showed us what true masculinity looks like. So does President Trump. And so do those amazing women President Trump has surrounded himself with, including Karoline Leavitt and Brooke Rollins. That includes Pam Bondi as well. Because as this goes on, all of the discussions surrounding countless different issues here in America, this administration deserves every benefit of the doubt. Given 6 months they've been in office, they're moving at a rapid pace to halt fentanyl act just signed yesterday, to the $92 billion invested in Pennsylvania, to the Gulf states, those deals bringing in trillions of dollars to the United States through military, AI, and energy. How about 5% GDP across the board? Europe has to pay up. I hope they enjoyed their vacation with the auto pen, but things have changed. And as the NATO Secretary General, Mr. Mark Rutte, put it, the former Dutch Prime Minister, Daddy's home. And it's nice to have someone you know that is actually in charge rather than what could have been a violation clearly of our laws, our Constitution, with an auto pen signing pardons and signing a record number of pardons and commutations of people that were never charged with the crime, just in case they would be in the crosshairs, so-called, of political opponents. Makes you wonder, what are they guilty of? What are they hiding? And given what's been in the news recently, especially surrounding the COVID pandemic and the Epstein files and everything in between in the last 4 years, where is Dr. Fear? Anthony Fauci? Where's Dr. Birx? Where is Alejandro Mayorkas? Where's the former Attorney General? Because they have a lot of answers to give about what they knew when, not only of the cognitive ability of the so-called commander-in-chief, but where they were when gain-of-function research was happening, when trafficking was happening across the southern border that they opened. I mean, the Biden administration solely had to not do anything on the border and continue the construction of the border wall and just left it alone and listened to experts like Tom Homan. But no, Mayorkas had an agenda to open up the southern border, and he should be held in criminal contempt because arguably it's treason. And reasonable people will ask this question, including Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually fighting for the American people. Are you solely incompetent, or is there something more insidious that's at play here? Perhaps a deep state, League of Shadows, globalist nature that is against our Constitution, our founding principles, and against the governance of a private citizen who became President of the United States thanks to you, the American people. And something I can go on and on about because I'm passionate about it. It could be a soapbox here and there, but I'm sure these are all the questions you're asking at home. And that's why we will bring you all of the news in real time here at Right Side Broadcasting Network's live desk, as well as our show on Thursday evenings, The Voice of Reason, with yours truly. Tonight we'll be interviewing Senator Tommy Tuberville, the great state of Alabama. He happens to be a candidate for governor as he looks to succeed Governor Kay Ivey here in Alabama, and also Ann Fundner, who was there with President Trump yesterday, who spoke from the presidential podium as President Trump held that beautiful portrait, you'll see it today as well on the show, of Weston, her son, who was poisoned and lost his life to fentanyl. It's a serious show. We're diving into a number of different topics, not only affecting the country today, but some of the narrative that has been out there on countless different channels, whether it be through influencers, the cable, the lack of the legacy media. Regardless of what it is, we will dive into that today for you on The Voice of Reason. So be sure to catch that tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern, episode 6, every Thursday night, as we dive into politics, punchlines, a flair of Western charm. That is an actual photo from a dear friend of mine out in Tombstone, Arizona, where the West was won and where we will continue to fight for law and order in streets that were lawless way back when. And sometimes in the corridors of history and power, it can be a lawless, deep swamp. But we'll bring it all to you in real time. So be sure to catch tonight The Voice of Reason at 6 o'clock Eastern, as we await Karoline Leavitt, the superstar, to come out and hold a press briefing today at the White House. I'm sure to detail everything happening at the Department of Justice, the HALT Fentanyl Act signed into law by President Trump, the $92 billion of investments going into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, with AI technologies, with energy being opened up for high-paying middle-class jobs, relief to those hard-working middle-class workers who can really need a break in Pennsylvania. On the campaign trail, countless different events, whether it was in Pittsburgh, in the Steel City, just as it was the other day at the invitation of Senator McCormick, but also in the Philadelphia, a beautiful city, really where our nation was born in so many ways. When we did that rally, the very first rally that I did was on June 22nd of last year, and we were staying down the street from the Betsy Ross house where she sewed that original American flag and the 13 stars, 13 stripes in that big, beautiful circle that really became a staple for our nation. I wear a belt that has that Betsy Ross flag on it, and it's one of my personal favorites to showcase where we've been, where we come from, and where we are going, now nearly 250 years young in this nation. But the reunion of Butler as well, to great places throughout the beautiful Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, including State College, the home of Penn State. President Trump dropped in just about everywhere as he crisscrossed the wonderful Commonwealth, and the highlight of those rallies, how many union workers were there, how many men and women in their hard hats who continue to help this nation function on a daily basis. We know Texas, really, in many ways, the undisputed king of energy, but it's really Pennsylvania that fuels America as we move in deeper into the 21st century. Now with being the leader in AI and in energy and getting rid of those stupid Chinese communist bird killers known as the windmills. Those things cannot be recycled. And that's my honest question for anyone, because I'm for an above all policy on energy, whether it's the nuclear that's being built up in Pennsylvania, to fracking, to drill baby drill from Pennsylvania to Alaska, everywhere in between. And down in the Gulf of America, we have liquid gold that we stand upon, bringing down the cost of gasoline. But why would anyone on the green movement, hear me out, want the bird killers to be up and swirling around? They cannot be recycled. They just lay there as bird grave markers, as tombs, as things that can pollute the earth. And it does not do much in regards to effective cost savings. And then it allows the Chinese Communist Party to come in and buy more of our farmland. Something that's been a huge issue, as you've seen, with the USDA. And Brooke Rollins stating that as the great secretary of that organization just last week, in case you missed it, including Senator Tuberville, who was there talking about 2.2 million acres of farmland being owned by the Chinese Communist Party because of the regulations that our government have historically put on the good people and farmers, ranchers in this nation. Not to mention the tariffs that were slapped on by the Canadians, our friends to the north, on Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa dairy farmers. What's a farmer to do but to make revenue like anyone else would? And thank you to the streamlining of the size and scope of government under this MAGA Republican movement in order to bring that relief, not only with the one big beautiful bill signed into law, but also with the other agenda items to make America healthy again. And how can you be healthy if you have the stress of going into debt or trying to get by, especially as a farmer who literally fuels America, fuels the world, and thanks to this administration, now Europe buying into the meat and poultry markets of the United States, as they should have been doing for years and years. And think about that. Europe doesn't do everything right. In fact, they do a lot of things wrong, but they did not want to purchase some of our finest meat, poultry, fish, because of different regulations and because of toxins and poisons that could go into them. So interesting food for thought as the White House press staff looks like it is coming in through the door there. We are waiting Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing moments for now, originally scheduled for 1 o'clock. It's just about 1:40 Eastern. We know that big topics are being discussed right there at the White House, and a lot of conversation swirling around what this deep state has in store to try and stop this president. We know there's been the lawfare, the fake impeachments, attempted assassinations, and now is there pressure one way or another surrounding the mysteries of Jeffrey Epstein and these files? Do they exist? Do they not exist? A lot of questions to be answered in the process, and a lot of understanding as to why certain things would not want to be on the docket. So let's take an example here of someone well-respected, a liberal Democrat, Alan Dershowitz, actually defended President Trump in the process of the impeachment hearings back in the first term, stating that he has seen this so-called list and that no one in the administration is on that. So let's take that for what it's worth. Also stating the fact that if some of these things are released, what about those that might be associated with the list? It becomes guilty by association. Those who are in business with Jeffrey Epstein who didn't know his dastardly acts that took place in New Mexico or around the world. Let's toss it there live now to Karoline Leavitt.
With the president. Let me begin with a few scheduling announcements today. President Trump will travel to Scotland, where he will visit both Turnberry and Aberdeen from July 25th to July 29th. During the visit, President Trump will meet again with Prime Minister Starmer to refine the great trade deal that was brokered between the United States and the United Kingdom. And the President and the First Lady will travel to the United Kingdom for an official state visit from September 17th to September 19th later this fall. This will mark a truly unprecedented second state visit for President Trump, and he is honored and looking forward to meeting with His Majesty the King at Windsor Castle. There has been a wave of positive economic news over the past week, which I would like to highlight today. Joe Biden's inflation crisis has been defeated. Prices paid to American businesses for goods and services were flat in June, which is lower than all 50 forecasters in the Bloomberg survey predicted. And core inflation, which is the best measure of inflation, came in lower than expected again in the month of June. Since President Trump took office, core inflation has tracked at just 2.1% overall and has come in below or at economists' expectations every single month. Wages are growing at a strong pace and prices are falling for everyday Americans. We also saw prices for new and used vehicles and airfares drop last month. In addition, prices for gas, fuel oil, energy commodities, hotels, airfare, public transportation, and fresh vegetables are all down over last year. As we said all along, trust in President Trump. The American dream is back, and everyday families are already reaping the benefits of this incredible economic turnaround in just 6 months. President Trump has ended the era of economic surrender and implemented powerful tariffs to stand up for our workers and businesses and rebalance America's trading agreements. Despite all of the doom casting from the so-called experts claiming that these tariffs would be the end of the world as we know it, the opposite has occurred. Tariffs are not inflationary, as President Trump has said all along. In reality, tariffs are a source of massive revenue. We're seeing trillions of dollars in private investment pour into our country right now because the companies around this world want to make their products right here with American labor and not have to pay any tariffs at all. Customs and tariff revenue has already totaled more than $113 billion since President Trump entered office, helping to lead a budget surplus in June for the first time in nearly a decade. We are truly entering a golden age as a result of these pro-growth and America First trade policies. On another matter, yesterday in the East Room, the president was proud to sign the Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl Act into law, surrounded by angel families to help finally end the devastating fentanyl crisis that has ravaged millions of Americans. Under the Halt Fentanyl Act, anyone who possesses, imports, distributes, or manufactures any illicit fentanyl-related substances will be subject to criminal prosecution in the same manner as any other Schedule I controlled substance. This legislation will close the loopholes that criminals use to skirt around the law and make it easier for law enforcement to prosecute vicious traffickers who peddle poison in our communities. President Trump has always made tackling the drug crisis a top priority, and this important bipartisan legislation further follows through on that commitment. The complete and total success at our southern border that many in the media in this room continue to ignore is another example of the president keeping his word to families who have lost loved ones due to fentanyl, and it's another win for the American people. Customs and Border Protection just released the final operationalized stats for the month of June, and I must highlight some of these incredible numbers. There were only 6,072 Southwest apprehensions in June, 15% lower than the previous record that this president set in the month of March. To put that in perspective, the Biden administration routinely saw the same number of encounters in a single day, and on many days, that number was more than 10,000 apprehensions at the Southwest border. There were also 0 illegal aliens released along the Southwest border for the second consecutive month in a row. President Trump promised to end the illegal alien invasion, and he has delivered on that promise to the American people in record time. With the border sealed, deportations are ramping up. This past weekend, our brave ICE agents were arresting violent criminal illegal aliens all across the country. ICE Atlanta arrested an illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of attempted rape of a child in North Carolina. ICE Baltimore arrested an illegal alien from Guatemala who was previously convicted for sexual abuse of a minor in Maryland. ICE Houston arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico whose previous conviction includes aggravated sexual assault of a child in Texas. ICE Salt Lake City arrested a 32-year-old illegal criminal alien from Mexico who was previously convicted for child abuse and injury. ICE Baltimore arrested a criminal illegal alien from El Salvador convicted in Maryland for possession of child pornography. And ICE San Antonio arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico convicted of aggravated sexual assault in Texas. The men and women of ICE are heroes. They are putting their lives on the line every day to get the worst of the worst, these types of criminals, out of our communities and out of our country. And the president continues to strongly have the backs of all ICE agents who are doing their jobs to keep all of us, including everyone in this room, safe. The facility, one second. In other news, following President Trump's bold executive actions protecting American children from irreversible chemical and surgical mutilation, the largest provider of these barbaric practices will now be closing its doors. The facility in Los Angeles, California, is just the latest facility downsizing or eliminating their irreversible and harmful services that feed into the lie that you can somehow change a child's sex. The Biden administration peddled dangerous policies that defied medical science in favor of radical transgender ideology. But President Trump has put an end to that to ensure America's children's innocence is protected and our children can lead healthy and productive lives. Finally, last night, Senate Republicans passed President Trump's $9 billion rescissions package. This will help restore fiscal sanity in our country by rescinding billions in wasteful foreign aid and finally ending taxpayer funding for PBS and NPR, two media organizations that have ridiculously used federal dollars to push a partisan left-wing agenda for many years. The House should pass this rescissions package immediately and send it to the president's desk for signature. On another note, I know that many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Laboratory testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here. So the president wanted me to share that note with all of you. I'm happy to take further questions on it. We will provide the memorandum from the president's position to all of you, as we always do. And we'll get to questions. Here in our new media seat, we have Frank Corva, who's the White House correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine, which comes at a timely week with crypto legislation moving across Capitol Hill. So why don't you kick us off, Frank, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Ms. Leavitt.
Sure.
I was curious to hear if the president was in favor of removing any and all language around central bank digital currencies from the Genius Act, maybe as a means to get it across the line and get it on his desk. And then my second question was about something the president spoke about in this room. He talked about a $600 de minimis tax exemption for Bitcoin and other crypto spending. So I was just wondering if you could comment on those.
Sure. Well, the president did signal his support for a de minimis exemption for crypto, and the administration continues to be in support of that. We are definitely receptive to it to make crypto payments easier and more efficient for those who seek to use crypto as simple as buying a cup of coffee. Of course, right now that cannot happen, but with the de minimis exemption, perhaps it could in the future, and we will continue to explore legislative solutions to accomplish that. As for the central bank digital currency and the Genius Act, which you noted has passed through Congress and will be sent to the president's desk. I believe the House is voting on it. If they haven't, they should be passing it. We know we have the votes, and we expect it to get to the president's desk, and we are planning a signing ceremony tomorrow afternoon. All of you will get more details on that. This piece of legislation is going to make America the crypto capital of the world, and that's what the president promised. As for a central bank digital currency, the president opposes that. He made that promise to the American people on the campaign, and while it's not in this specific piece of legislation, he did sign a January executive order banning a central bank digital currency. The administration supports Congress's efforts to codify that executive order into law, and I believe there will be future pieces of legislation in regards to crypto that will be moving through Capitol Hill. The president looks forward to signing them, and he looks forward to the signing ceremony this afternoon. So thank you for being with us today. Sure. Jackie.
Thank you, Karoline. There's been a lot of discussion about the Epstein files and the president's comments yesterday calling it a hoax. Can you clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
The president is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make. The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them to these high law enforcement positions. And they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about. The president has been working so hard this week. On Tuesday, he went to Pennsylvania, where he secured $90 billion in investments for the Commonwealth, for the people of that state. After that, he came back to the Oval Office at 8 p.m. He went in there to whip votes to get the Genius Act signed into law. And because of his efforts, that bill is now going to be signed and passed. The following day, yesterday, he meets with a foreign leader, the King of Bahrain, to secure more investments into this country. And then yesterday afternoon, the president is in the East Room of the White House mourning with parents who have lost their children because of fentanyl, signing a bipartisan piece of legislation. And not a single cable network in this country took that event live and covered that event like they should. Those are the issues the president cares about. What could be more important to the American people than helping families who have lost their children? Those are the issues this president is going to remain focused on.
I understand he wants to move on from the story, but you do have some prominent figures, including the Senate Majority Leader, the House Speaker, voicing support for the files to come out. Representative Massey collecting signatures that would force a discharge petition for a vote on the floor for this. It doesn't seem to be going away. What is stopping the administration from just redacting any sensitive information, grand jury information, and putting out what is appropriate so that the American people can decide and then let this story die?
Well, in terms of redactions or grand jury seals, those are questions for the Department of Justice. Those are also questions for the judges who have that information under a seal. And that would have to be requested, and a judge would have to approve it. That's out of the president's control. He has said, in agreement with some of the leaders on Capitol Hill, that if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice come across any other credible evidence, they should provide that to the American people. The president has said that, and he agrees with them on that.
Why did he fire Maureen Comey?
The Department of Justice did, and I would defer you to them. Dasha.
Has the White House been directly in touch with some of the MAGA influencers that are still not satisfied with the administration's handling? And has the message to them been similar to what the president has said, which is sort of either let this go or we don't need your support?
Well, look, the president and this team are always in contact with the president's supporters, with voices of many kinds on both sides of the aisle. I think that's part of the reason this president is a great president, because he's willing to listen and hear other people's perspectives. But ultimately, he has led this country, not just over the past 6 months to historic success, but also through his first 4 years as president. And as the leader and the creator of the MAGA movement, he has led through these perilous times for our country based on instinct and in the best interest of the country. And as I always say, the American people should trust in President Trump.
And what on
John,
the Fed chair?
Go ahead, John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. The president on Monday announced that if there's not compliance with Russia within 50 days, there would be increased tariffs. Can you explain how that works, first of all? What happens if Russia doesn't end its war with Ukraine in 50 days?
Well, in 50 days, as the president clearly laid out, if there is not a ceasefire agreement or a peace deal within that time frame, if Russia refuses to legitimately agree to a ceasefire, then they will face very steep tariffs, and they will also face secondary sanctions. So countries that are purchasing oil from Russia will be sanctioned as well, and of course that will do deep damage to Russia's economy. And I would just add that the president wants this war to end with a diplomatic solution. He's been pushing for it. This administration has spent many hours and a lot of time trying to solve this war very far away, but the president wants to stop the killing, and he wants to save lives.
As far
Reagan,
as the first part
go
of
ahead.
What you were saying, Caroline.
Reagan, go ahead.
I have two questions for you. It's just about, if I may, just about the tariffs, the first part. I get the secondary tariffs, but there was only $3 billion worth of trade between the U.S. and Russia in 2024. It's expected to be far less this particular year. On April the 2nd, both you and the Treasury Secretary said it's not necessary to apply any tariffs on Russia. You said that because of the lack of trade, it precludes, that was the word you used, any need for tariffs. Why now, and why do you think that that would make them cave and come to some sort of peace agreement as it relates to Ukraine?
$3 billion is still a lot of money, John, and it's not just tariffs, it's the secondary sanctions as well that will be implemented in 50 days. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for
Sure.
you. First on Congress. Congresswoman Salazar introduced legislation that would give some illegal immigrants in the country a path to citizenship. 10 Republicans signed on to what she's calling the Dignity Act. I'm curious what the White House's position is on the legislation and if the president would veto this bill if it made it to its desk.
From my understanding, the White House nor the president has actually read through this legislation. We've been focused on, of course, the One Big Beautiful Bill, which passed, which is another historic accomplishment of this president in record time. The Genius Act this week, the rescissions package, that's been the focus of the White House. But the president has made it very clear he will not support amnesty for illegal aliens in any way.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the CEO of NPR. She's claiming that the cuts to their network will, quote, be a real risk to public safety of the country. Congressman Murkowski has argued that public broadcasting stations save lives. Could you respond to these concerns?
The NPR CEO said cutting NPR will be a risk to public safety. I am not sure how NPR helps the public safety of our country, but I do know that NPR, unfortunately, has become really just a propaganda voice for the left. Just a few examples for you. In 2020, NPR refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal in the run-up to the election. They said their assertions don't amount to much, writing they did not want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That does not sound like an unbiased opinion. That sounds like a partisan opinion to me. And this is a taxpayer-funded organization. In 2018, that same CEO that you're talking about called the president in the Oval Office, who nearly 80 million Americans elected, she called him racist, shared a photo of herself wearing a Biden for President campaign hat, serves on the board of a Soros-funded activist group. In 2020, PBS's White House correspondent at the time characterized President Trump's speech then at Mount Rushmore as a love letter to white resentment, promoting the myth of America. In 2017, PBS devoted an entire panel talking about what it means to be woke and white privilege. In 2023, PBS's Washington Week Roundtable covered up Joe Biden's clear mental divide. That's actually quite the clip. I would encourage all of you to look at it. These are not honest news organizations. These are partisan, left-wing outlets that are funded by the taxpayers. And this administration does not believe it's a good use of the taxpayers' time and money. Ed Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I want to ask you about the Federal Reserve. So does the president believe that the slightly restrictive monetary policy stance right now, could that cause an economic slowdown? And if he does believe that, when?
What pause are you referring to?
No, could the stance of the monetary policy is slightly restrictive. Does the president believe that that stance, the slightly restrictive stance, could cause an economic slowdown in itself?
I haven't heard the president discuss that specifically, but what I do know in regards to the Federal Reserve is the president's been very transparent about his displeasure with both the policies and the management of the Fed, and he spoke about that to all of you pretty extensively in the Oval Office yesterday.
And last month, one more if I could. Last month, the Canadian Prime Minister said the president had agreed to a July 21st deadline to sort of work towards a trade agreement. That's 4 days from now. Could there be a trade agreement with Canada in 4 days?
Well, look, we'll see. The trade team continues to be very active in our conversations and discussions with Canada. The president himself has said, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north have been pretty difficult to deal with when it comes to matters on trade. But in trade, generally speaking, as you know, 25 countries have received letters thus far from the president directly with his big, beautiful signature on them, from Japan to Korea, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, just a few countries, and Canada also received a letter for 35%. With that said, if countries want to have legitimate further discussions, the Trump administration and the president's trade team are willing to have further talks, but these letters these countries have been receiving are the deals. And as the president has said, those deals will be made. They are tailor-made to each and every country based on the United States' concerns and what's in the best interest of the American worker and the American people. Charlie, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
No, I called on Charlie, but Deanna, you can go ahead too. Go ahead.
The president said that he floated the idea of a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. Can you confirm that? And has he asked the Attorney General to do this, to appoint a special prosecutor to look it over?
Well, the idea was floated from someone in the media to the president. The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels. And as for his discussions with the Attorney General, I'm not sure. Deanna.
Karoline. Thank you so much. Do you know what the president's reaction was to Mike Johnson saying that he wants additional files released, the Epstein files? Was there a conversation with Mike Johnson about that following his comments?
I won't discuss the president's private conversations with the Speaker of the House, but as I answered to Jackie's question earlier, the president has said if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice and the FBI have any more credible evidence in regards to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, they should put that forward. He has called on them to do that.
Sure. Thank you, Karoline.
With a few days.
I'll go to all of you, starting with the lady in the blue. Go ahead.
With a few days to the August 9th deadline, how are the negotiations with Europe going? There's some sticking points. What are they? Can we expect a delay, or should we expect a deal soon?
Well, I believe the deadline is August 1st. As for the European Union, they continue to be very eager in negotiating with our country for obvious reasons on ways to lower their tariff and their non-tariff barriers that we have long said harm our workers and our companies. So the president's trade team continue to be in talks with the European Union.
Would he accept, or would he put forth a postponement of the August 1st?
He's already said he will not.
Caroline,
go ahead.
Good afternoon, Caroline. In Gaza today, Holy Family Catholic Church was struck by an Israeli shell.
Yes.
3 people were killed, 10 wounded. What is the president's reaction to that church coming under fire?
It was not a positive reaction. He called Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning to address the strikes on that church in Gaza, and I understand the Prime Minister agreed to put out a statement. It was a mistake by the Israelis to hit that Catholic church. That's what the Prime Minister relayed to the President, and you should look at the Prime Minister's statement that will be coming out. Steve, go ahead.
Back to your letter that you read at the beginning.
Sure.
The President, you said mild swelling in his legs. Is it causing him any discomfort? How are you treating it?
Nope. No discomfort from the president at all, and you probably all see that on a day-to-day basis. He's working around the clock. As for the treatments, I can defer to the president's physician, and we'll get you this letter. I think it will answer all your questions.
There are reports that a Chinese-born banker who works in Atlanta for Wells Fargo is being prevented from leaving China. Is he going to bring this up with President Xi? Are you aware of the case?
I'm not aware of the case, but I'm sure our National Security Council team is. Steve will get you some answers on that.
Thank you.
Kristen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. So the first is that President Trump said that the Attorney General only gave him a brief overview of what was in these Epstein files. Does he have knowledge or an understanding of what is in the files related to Epstein that have not been released?
Not to my knowledge, and that's a question for the Attorney General, as I said, and the President has told the Attorney General if they have any more credible evidence, they should release it.
Is that evidence, would she have to run that by the President before she released it?
I don't think so. He said if she has any more credible evidence, she should release it.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, yes.
Great. Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. One, today...
And you can go ahead, Andrew. Don't worry.
Today, tens of thousands of folks are rallying nationwide to honor the legacy of Congressman John Lewis. Meanwhile, Republicans in Texas reportedly are working to redraw congressional maps at President Trump's urging. How is President Trump reconciling his call to action for Texas Republicans with the legacy of Representative John Lewis?
I'm not quite sure how the two things are related. I think the president would agree that John Lewis served our country for many, many years. It has nothing to do with the redistricting efforts that are currently underway by Texas Republicans to add seats to their legislature. They have the right to do that. The president spoke to the congressmen and women who serve the great state of Texas about it, but it's up to them and it's up to their legislature to get that approved.
And Caroline, this is the second question. And
Go
does
ahead.
the president support the Justice Department's request for just 1 day in jail for the officer convicted in Breonna Taylor's killing? And what message does he believe that sends to her family and to other families seeking justice in cases of police violence?
I haven't talked to the president about that case. Go ahead.
Just the president, when the president met the interim president of Syria a couple of months ago, he described him as a young, tough, attractive guy. after the latest clashes in Syria over the last few days, does President Trump still support Syria's interim president?
The president still supports Syria's pathway to a peaceful and prosperous country, and you received an update directly from the Secretary of State on the ongoing situation between Syria and Israel. I spoke to him myself this morning to get an update, and as soon as the United States became involved in this conflict, we were able to de-escalate, deconflict. That seems to be continuing. Syria agreed to draw back their troops that were in the area where that clash was ongoing, and we continue to be very actively monitoring the situation. The president wants to see Syria become a prosperous and stable country, and by the lifting of the sanctions on Syria, he's giving them a real chance to do that, and he wants to see that through. Andrew, go ahead.
So on Tuesday, the president told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the president. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say. But I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the president's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The president's very proud of his family. In fact, the president has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime. Elizabeth.
Caroline, one more.
Elizabeth,
will the president consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell if the Epstein case is a hoax?
Okay, I'll start off with the president said last week he would not be getting involved in the New York City mayoral case. If that mayoral race, if that's still the case, given his history drawing a large crowd in New York City, what's his reason for staying out of it in that way?
Well, look, I think the president reserves the right to get involved in races or not get involved in races, and he's made the decision not to weigh in on the New York mayoral race, as you rightly pointed out, although he has gone as far to say he absolutely does not want to see Zemdami elected, who is a known communist who supports the abolishment of private property, the defunding of police. He has made very well-known anti-Semitic statements. It would be a disaster for New York and for this country, and I think it's quite telling that this individual, a known communist, has been spending time in Washington this week meeting with leaders on Capitol Hill. This is truly where the Democrat Party is headed. Clearly, they learned nothing from November 5th in the president's overwhelming victory. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. I want to backtrack to the hospitals that have stopped providing transgender surgeries and hormones for kids. On this front, does that have anything to do with the DOJ's subpoenas last week? Should we expect any more hospitals to be shutting down their programs? And I wanted to also ask what you make of all these media reports, especially the AP, which I noticed, which portrays these children as losing something that's saving their lives.
Yes, I think the president spoke a lot about this issue, which is a political issue, but also really a cultural issue that impacts children and families. He talked about it a lot on the campaign, and I think he was quite surprised by the uptick we were seeing in the embracement by the Democrat Party when it comes to the chemical castration and mutilation of young, innocent bodies. And so the president made it a very early priority to sign very strong executive orders to cut off the funding for any hospital or any medical facility in this country that provides such barbaric procedures. And as a result of that strong policy and the president's strong common sense position on this issue, we've had such an overwhelming response, which is great for children in Arizona. Phoenix Children's Hospital has stopped providing puberty blockers and hormone therapy to minors. In California, Stanford Medicine ended sex change surgeries for minors. Children's Hospital Los Angeles is closing its Center for Trans Youth Health and Development. surgical program in Illinois. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago stopped sex change surgeries. Again, let's think about what we're talking about here. Sex change surgeries for minors. These are barbaric practices that no child, innocent child, should have to endure. And the president wants to protect the innocence of children, and I know the vast majority of Americans support him in that effort. This is a wildly popular and common sense endeavor this administration has taken, and we've seen many of these medical institutions have followed through with the president's executive orders, but we'll continue to take further action on this important issue. Garrett.
I too, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
On the rescissions package, I wonder what the White House makes of this theory that it increases the odds of a shutdown. The theory is basically, why would any Democrat vote for a bipartisan spending deal with Republicans if Republicans can turn around and claw the money back the next day?
Look, $9 billion worth of crap that it was in our federal funding that is now being rescinded. This is a good thing for the American people and the American taxpayer, and I think our Office of Management and Budget Director was saying this process should be more bipartisan. Democrats, there was a time in this country where Democrats too cared about getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal spending. I think every American agrees the government spends way too much money on things that don't matter. Some of those things includes PBS and NPR, or for instance the Democracy Fund, which was funded to the tune of $83 million through the Department of State, but they were giving hundreds of thousands of dollars for gender equality and empowerment hubs in Yemen, $3.9 million for strengthening information integrity, equality, and democracy for LGBTQI population of the Western Balkans. These are not good uses of the taxpayer funds, and Republicans are proud to lead that effort, and we wish more Democrats would join us in that.
I wanted to follow up on the Maureen Comey question just to clarify. Did the White House have any knowledge, or did the president sign off on her firing?
This was a decision that was made by the Department of Justice.
There was an agreement that was made between Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services regarding access to Medicaid information for 92 million Medicaid recipients around the country. That includes health information. So how does that not violate HIPAA violations and privacy concerns, for example, of American citizens?
I'm going to have to defer you to Immigration and Customs Enforcement on that. I'm unfamiliar with that agreement that they made.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions. Russ Vought said today he's going to be looking into cost overruns in the Fed's renovation projects. Is there a deadline for him to come back with findings to the president?
I don't believe there's a deadline the president has set for Russ Vought, but I think, again, this is a good use of taxpayers' time to look into this project that is millions and millions of dollars over budget. It's for a big, beautiful mansion for the federal chairman, reserve chairman, and I understand that it costs much more than it did the beautiful palace that many of you joined us at when we went overseas. So it's completely unnecessary. It's overpriced. And I think it's a good thing the administration, led by the president, is looking into it.
If there ever were to find wrongdoing or fraud, would the president reconsidering firing Jerome Powell?
Look, it's a hypothetical question. We'll see where it goes. The president spoke about how he feels on this matter yesterday.
Sure. Thank you so much, Caroline. So we saw Ambassador Huckabee arrive to Prime Minister Netanyahu's trial to show his support. Does the president plan to impose any kind of sanctions against the Israel judicial system?
I don't have any update for you on that or any announcement on that front. I don't believe so.
Does the president believe that justice has been served in the Epstein case?
Look, the president believes that he directed the Department of Justice to do an exhaustive and thorough review, and they did that. And they all agreed, the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the attorney general, on the memo that they drafted and they released.
Thank you, Caroline. Just a follow-up on Reagan's question. Representative Salazar's bill, it grants illegal aliens with legal status for 7-year increments. It also gives permanent path to residency for so-called dreamers. And, President Trump and Labor Secretary Chavez, who previously co-sponsored a version of this bill when she was in the House, they've spoken about a work deal similar to the bill, I believe. What's the difference between a work deal and amnesty?
Look, as I told Reagan, the president, the White House have not reviewed this specific piece of legislation. It's just not where our focus has been. But the president, for one, has been very clear he does not support amnesty. We'll go to, look at some friends in the back. Brian, go ahead.
Back to the room. Thank you very much.
You didn't show up early enough to get some good real estate up here.
I love it. Any update on the auto pen? I know that there was the DOJ and some others were looking into the thousands of documents that were signed off just before Joe Biden left office. Any update on the auto pen?
Yes. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at how far away you are, and you're going to need to get some microphones back there. And the auto pen investigation, yes. The White House counsel's office has launched their own investigation into former President Biden's usage of the auto pen. We have requested some documents from the National Archives, and again, as I've said many times from this podium, and the President has said as well, it's incredibly important that we get to the bottom of who really was at the tip of the spear in the decision-making process here in the White House, because former President Biden himself admitted to the New York Times, I understand he never gave interviews when he was here, but now all of a sudden he wants to give one, and he said that he did not actually review every single pardon that he signed on his way out the door. That's incredibly concerning, and I can tell you it's something this president would never tolerate. This is a president who is signing things all the time. Any document that has legal implications, this president's signature is on it because he's the one making the decisions. It does not appear that was the truth in the previous White House, and I know the American people want to receive answers on who was running the show, because the decisions that were made in this place really destroyed our country, and we deserve to get to the bottom of it. Mark, in the back.
Thanks. Some Christian groups are complaining that they are not able to get visas as quickly to travel to Israel, and it's been elevated to Ambassador Huckabee's station. Is the White House aware of that? Does it have any reaction to that? And is that part of the president's disappointment with Netanyahu and his government?
Look, I'm not aware of that, Mark, but I'm sure, again, our National Security Council is, and also the State Department. As you know, travel visas roll through Secretary Rubio's shop over there, whom we work very closely with. So we will check in on the matter. But I know overall, this president and the administration do want to streamline the visa process to make it easier for both Americans who want to travel abroad and people abroad who want to come to our country the legal way. Go ahead. I was going to the gentleman above you, but go ahead, Libby, and then you can go.
Sorry. Okay, two questions for you. The first is, during the Hill Nation Summit, Secretary Noem suggested there could be some changes to TSA's liquid limits.
Mm-hmm.
Is the president aware of that? Is that an idea that he's backing? And what would that timeline and the changes look like?
Sure. I would defer you to the Department of Homeland Security, but I did see Secretary Noem's comments, and I think it's great that on day one she asked TSA, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we make air travel more efficient while maintaining utmost security for American passengers and travelers? And I know they announced no more shoes, or you don't need to take off your shoes anymore at the airport, which I think is welcome news to all of us who travel a lot. But further guidance or decisions, of course, that's in the Secretary of Homeland Security's overview, and I would defer to her.
And the other question for you is on Bondi and Burgum's trip today to Alcatraz. I'm curious what the funding is going to look like for that, and who the president does want to see incarcerated there, if it were to become.
Sure. Well, this was an idea of the president. He spoke about it in May, and he directed his administration to review a reopening plan for Alcatraz if it is possible, which is why the Attorney General and the Secretary of Interior have traveled there today. They are touring the site, and if the Alcatraz prison is reopened, it would be under the purview of the Bureau of Prisons, and the Secretary of Interior also would play a big role in this as well. So they're there to review the site today, and I'm sure you'll hear more from them on it later. And just to follow up, Libby, on who the president wants to see housed in Alcatraz, the worst of the worst criminals in this country, both American criminals who convict heinous crimes, but also illegal alien criminals before deportation as well. Sure. Go ahead.
The State Department yesterday urged the Chinese Communist Party to cease its campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, a peaceful spiritual practice. With the anniversary of this brutal persecution approaching, does the White House have a message for the CCP on this?
Well, I will get you one, and we will get back to you. Go ahead. We'll take. Go ahead, and then go ahead. Sure. I've never called on you. Why don't you go ahead? In the red tie. Dr. Harper behind.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Me, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yes, you. What's your name?
My name is Matias. Thank you.
What's your outlet?
I'm for Record TV, Brazil.
Great.
Brazil's President Lula recently said that President Trump was elected to govern the United States and not to act as the emperor of the world. And he also emphasized that Brazil is open to negotiation. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, what the administration has to say about it, and specifically what areas are currently open to negotiation in the light of the 50% tariffs that were announced.
Sure. The president is certainly not trying to be the emperor of the world. He is a strong president for the United States of America, and he's also the leader of the free world. And we've seen a great shift across the entire globe because of the strong leadership of this president. In regards to Brazil, the president sent a letter to Brazil announcing their new tariff percentage. He also directed our USTR ambassador, Jameson Greer, to launch an investigation of Brazil under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, designed to address unfair foreign practices that are affecting U.S. commerce. For years, we know Brazil's digital regulations and weak IP protections have undermined U.S. tech and innovative companies, and their tolerance of illegal deforestation and other environmental practices puts American producers, manufacturers, farmers, and ranchers who follow better environmental standards at a competitive disadvantage. So this president always acts in the best interest of the American people and the United States of America, and he will continue to do so. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later. I appreciate the enthusiasm today.
So a very important press conference with the GOAT, the superstar, as President Trump puts it, Karoline Leavitt, holding a press briefing there for you in the James S. Brady briefing room. Some breaking news. President Trump has been diagnosed with a chronic venous insufficiency. So what that ultimately means is that he went through a series of tests, as was outlined by Karoline Leavitt very well there from the podium. An echocardiogram was also performed by his team of doctors there at the White House staff and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. So that is important news. We're glad the president is doing very well at 79 years young. You know, he works around the clock, and the transparency of this administration continues. As another big question surrounding the Epstein files, he has asked and really would like to see if there's any credible information regarding Jeffrey Epstein. He's encouraged that to be released by the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. But some very good poignant questions there across the board by many different outlets regarding the state of affairs, not only in the United States, here at home, but also abroad. Thank you for watching us today at RSBN's live desk. Also, thank you to our sponsors, All Family Pharmacy, where we had the opportunity to speak earlier in the broadcast with the one, the only Lars Larson, a great spokesperson and legend within radio and television about the importance of allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, NAD+, methylene blue, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and much, much more, including mebendazole, over 200 plus essential medications, emergency medical kits, and also antibiotics that you can use at home. There's no reason to be unprepared in 2025, but also on the road as you travel throughout this great country or abroad during the summertime. So scan the QR code there. 10% off a new deal with RSBN 10. Easy to remember. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. If you like what we're doing here at the network as your go-to live desk and with programming as well as newsletters that you can read right at home, including a Sunday devotional before you head off to church, support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, rsbnetwork.com/donate, or texting RSBN to 801-801. Now, we know that you also like kind of the old school way of doing things here and there, so we do accept cash and checks by mailing us at 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's Box 344 in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. 1550, that is 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. We are happy to call the loveliest village on the plains home. As you see the great university behind me, please feel free to support us as we're up against the legacy media, the globalists, the communists, the League of Shadows, and the Uniparty. And we will be successful peacefully and patriotically with more free speech and defending the constitutional principles that have made America great. RSBNetwork.com/newsletter. That's where you can read everything on a rainy day on the beautiful college campus of Auburn University. Perhaps the finest in the SEC. It actually is, because it just matters more in the Southeastern Conference, and we're excited for everything to come with football season just around the corner as it's hot and humid down south, but we're enjoying our summertime. We hope you are as well. Be sure to catch tonight The Voice of Reason with yours truly at 6 o'clock Eastern as we interview the Senator, Tommy Tuberville, Coach Tuberville, as he's known in these parts of Auburn, Alabama. He's running for governor of Alabama. We'll also have Ann Fendner, who was with President Trump yesterday, and we remember her wonderful, handsome son who passed from the fentanyl crisis, and the Angel families fighting on a daily basis to make America safe again, healthy again, and great again. So you can look forward to Senator Tommy Tuberville and Ann Fendner tonight on The Voice of Reason at 6 o'clock with yours truly. Be sure to catch in for all things on the right side of history. Get all America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. For all of my colleagues here at RSBN's live desk, have a wonderful afternoon. We will see you tonight. God bless you and yours, and see you in a few hours.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.